possible, we will build another 35,000 houses to become the fifth city of the Netherlands.
If possible, he says. Because there's a great big question mark over those 30 to 35,000 new homes. Why? Electricity.
The Netherlands were suffering from grid congestion. And Almere, as a fast-growing city, is suffering especially hard from this problem.
Grid congestion. It isn't a supply problem. The Netherlands actually exports electricity. It's domestic distribution, getting the power from one place to another. Cabling, infrastructure. It's a nationwide challenge.
Almere has the potential to fulfill a large part of the need for new housing in the Netherlands. And if we're not finding solutions for the congestion problem, then maybe we have to dial back on maybe completely stop our housing aspirations.
Completely stop?
Yeah, that's the worst case scenario.
So this new school, is this going to open?
Yeah, we're building it now, but to be frank, we're still looking for a solution for the power shortage that will be there when the school opens.
So the electricity is not assured?
The only solution I believe in is we have to use energy where it's produced and only to transport the surplus outside your region when you cannot use it locally.
Oh look, seashells.
This is where people swim in summer.
Marissa Hubels is a reporter for Almere 1, a local radio station. We're on the beach, a stone's throw from the modernity of Almere. While they negotiate to form a new government, the D66 has gone a bit quiet on their explicit campaign pledge of 10 new cities. Even so, the one with the most developed plans is supposed to be built here. Well, not right here, but out there in the water, on land that hasn't yet been reclaimed. It's a scheme with a projected price tag of 20 billion euros. There's even a provisional name for it, Ystad.
Yeah, the plan is to actually do what we did in Almere as well. So just build a city from scratch and have it emerge from the sea.
But of course the Netherlands is very good at this. It's very good at reclaiming land from the sea, right?
We've done it before with Almere. I think we're very proud of our ability to keep water out. We are beneath sea level at most times, even in Amsterdam.
So if it happens, it's going to be 60,000 homes? I mean, looking here now, across the water, the sand, the shingle, the trees, I mean, it seems like a fantasy.
It does seem like a fantasy, and a fantasy that I think Dutch people really wanted to hear at the time. Our past government was mainly a pretty radical right government that promised to fix the housing market through limiting migration.
And migrants are important in the housing equation. Like the UK, most of the political noise in the Netherlands on migration is about asylum seekers. But more people arrive to work, often from within the EU and Europe, because the Netherlands has an acute shortage of labour. Last year, net migration was probably just over 100,000. It's been suggested by at least one expert that number should be halved to ease pressure on accommodation. But it's hard to see how that could happen without radical changes to the economy. As Marissa says, the last Dutch government's answer to the housing crisis emphasised cutting migration.
And I think D66 wanted to counter that by saying that, they have another solution and we can include everyone, but just build, 10 more cities. So I think a lot of people thought that optimism was very inspiring because we do need those 60,000 homes.
So if we come back here in maybe a decade, in 10 years' time, what's your best guess? What will we find here?
I think we will still find the water and the trees and everything else. We don't know if they're actually going to build Ystad. It might be. We do need it. I hope that around that time we will have found a solution to the housing crisis.
That's all from Assignment from the Netherlands. The producer was Tim Mansell. Assignment was expertly mixed by Duncan Hannant. Penny Murphy is the editor.
That was Assignment from the BBC. I'm Saroja Coelho, and this is CBC Radio 1.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live downtown in our CBC studios on 89.3 FM, 990 AM, on that app and on YouTube. We're on air with the morning show until 8:37. Warmer day today, but windy. In fact, we have a yellow advisory, blowing snow warning because of the wind. Poor visibility is expected. Now, this is in particular locations. Northwestern Manitoba going to be affected by this the most. But in the city of Winnipeg, our high is going to be 1, and we have a 60% chance of some flurries. We will have a sunny day, though, to start. Over in Brandon today, also mainly sunny, chance of flurries, high around 0, very similar to Winnipeg. And up in Thompson today, flurries expected for you as well. Your temperature will fall to about -9 this afternoon. And once again, those gusty winds seem to persist across our province for this Thursday, January 15th, middle of the month already. Corey Funk directs the show. Good morning, Corey. Corey's also on air with your commute details. Abby Adiemi will cover weather on air for the program. Abby is our lead tech. Hi, Abby. And Darren Marash is behind the controls of our YouTube stream. If you're watching the show stream live, please do. Darren's our producer there. Let's get to Heather Wells. It's 2 minutes to 6 o'clock. We sure have had a couple of mornings of developing news. Heather, what are you leading with today?
Well, we are hearing now from some of the school bus crash victims from earlier this week near Swan River. All 3 teens who were airlifted to Winnipeg after that crash have now been released from hospital. They were among 15 people on the bus that rolled after veering off the icy highway. 15-year-old Michelle Chartrand says she dozed off on her way to school when the bus lost control. She woke up to see the bus rolling, and then she blacked out. She remembers coming to outside the bus, and she says her back is still sore even after being released from hospital. So we're going to hear more from her. Also, a housing advocate says it was just a matter of time before fire destroyed the vacant Manwin Hotel on Main Street. Marion Willis at St. Boniface Street Link says almost every shuttered building in Winnipeg ends up razed by fire. We'll hear more Manitoba News coming up at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Well, on the topic of the Manwin Hotel, it is just the timing was just not planned. But when the Sutherland Hotel burned a year ago, also on the Main Street Strip, there's a buyer in BC that is interested in developing housing there. He's actually in Winnipeg today. He's going to be on our program moving forward today. That plus much more. Right now, though, it's time for World Report at 6.
On cue.
I'm Talia Schlanger in for Tom Power. The renowned artist Stan Douglas is known for recreating big moments of tension in history in his art and then remixing them. He'll tell you how stepping inside history has helped him realize there's an alternative to the status quo.
Until I get to a point where I can make a decision intuitively without thinking about it consciously.
Q. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. Prime Minister Mark Carney says Canada and China are working to get their relationship back on track. And today in Beijing, they're drawing attention to the areas where they can agree, signing MOUs on a range of issues. The CBC's Tom Perry is traveling with the Prime Minister.
A brass band and long lines of Chinese military personnel in dress uniform, standing in tight formation, greeted Prime Minister Mark Carney as he was welcomed to China's Great Hall of the People by Chinese Premier Li Qiang. The elaborate ceremony part of a day of meetings between Carney, members of his cabinet, Chinese business leaders, and top government officials, launching what Carney calls a new partnership between Canada and China.
It's a partnership with new focus and greater depth and a sense of purpose. And I look forward to realizing its promise and building on it in the years to come.
Carney and his team announced new and renewed agreements on energy, tourism, and other sectors, but so far there's been no resolution of one of the main issues between China and Canada. China continues to tariff Canadian canola, pork, and seafood, while Canada continues to match the United States in imposing 100% tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles. Carney, meanwhile, will sit down tomorrow with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Tom Perry, CBC News, Beijing.
To Minneapolis now, and another shooting involving an ICE agent. It happened last night, exactly 1 week since an agent shot and killed Renee Good. The Department of Homeland Security says that federal officers were chasing a suspect believed to be in the U.S. illegally. Katie Nicholson has the latest.
Chaos in a North Minneapolis neighborhood. Flashbangs and waves of tear gas after an ICE agent shot a Venezuelan man in the leg. igniting the anger of nearly 200 protesters.
So you said one of the protesters jumped in the vehicle of an ICE agent?
Yeah, and punched him in the face and then jumped back out of the vehicle.
On X, the Department of Homeland Security said an ICE agent was assaulted by a Venezuelan they were trying to apprehend, and 2 other people attacked the agent with a snow shovel and a broom handle. DHS says the officer feared for his life and fired the gun. Both the officer and the man who was shot were sent to hospital. The 2 others were taken into custody.
This is not sustainable.
The city and the state have filed a lawsuit to curtail the federal immigration crackdown. But Mayor Jacob Fry worries it may take too long.
I'm deeply concerned that we don't have that kind of time. This is already the 2nd shooting that we've had in a week. People are scared. The atmosphere is tense.
This latest shooting, 1 week to the day that Renee Good was shot and killed by an ICE agent. And on the same night, Governor Tim Walz addressed the state.
It's a campaign of organized brutality against the people of Minnesota by our own federal government.
Walz encouraged people to protest loudly, urgently, but peacefully, something some chose to ignore. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Washington.
Iran says Erfan Soltani will not be sentenced to death. He's the 26-year-old man who was arrested last week during anti-regime demonstrations. And there were reports that he was going to be executed yesterday. Iran's judiciary now says Soltani was charged with anti-regime propaganda and colluding against internal security. But the death penalty does not apply to his case. A promise not to execute protesters seems to have eased tensions with U.S. President Donald Trump.
We've been told that the killing in Iran is stopping, and it's stopped, and it's stopping. And there's no plan for executions or an execution or executions. So I've been told that on good authority. We'll find out about it.
The group Human Rights Activists in Iran says more than 18,000 people have been arrested in this round of protesting, and more than 2,600 have been killed, including 1 Canadian citizen. Nobel Peace Prize winner Maria Corina Machado is meeting Donald Trump for the first time. The U.S. president is hosting the Venezuelan opposition leader at the White House just days after he ousted her foe, President Nicolas Maduro. The CBC's Willie Lauer is in our Washington bureau. So, Willie, what are we expecting from this meeting?
John, in many ways, both Maria Corina Machado and Donald Trump have achieved what the other has strived for. Machado with the much-coveted Nobel Peace Prize, and Trump deposing longtime Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. But there is no question that President Trump holds the keys to both Machado and Venezuela's future. The Venezuelan opposition leader will try to court Trump and show him that she is capable of running the oil-rich country, something Trump has questioned. So far, he has also resisted calls for elections and the democratic process to take place in Venezuela, opting to allow Maduro's vice president, Delcy Rodriguez, to take power.
Meanwhile, Willie, we'll get you to unpack this one. Republicans in the Senate have blocked efforts aimed at limiting Trump's ability to conduct more attacks on Venezuela. What can you tell us about that?
So the White House went on a week-long offensive trying to pressure 5 Senate Republicans to reverse their votes on a resolution that would have forced Trump to seek congressional approval before any more military action in Venezuela. The pressure tactics worked, with 2 senators saying the administration had satisfied their concerns. Here's Republican Senator Josh Hawley.
The Secretary also told me directly that the administration will not put ground troops into Venezuela. They do not seek to occupy Venezuela.
Meanwhile, Democratic Senator Tim Kaine slammed his Republican colleagues.
This is very disappointing, and it's disappointing that my colleagues let the president sort of beat him into submission.
Democratic lawmakers have been really frustrated by the administration's unilateral actions in Venezuela without their approval or advance knowledge.
Willie Lowry in Washington. Thanks, Willie.
My pleasure.
People in Uganda are voting in a presidential election, and there are reports of long lines and lengthy delays at polling stations.
I came here around 7:30 because they told us by 7 the election will be starting. But we are here still standing, waiting for the machines. They're telling us machines are not yet here. So we are just waiting, and we are hoping we vote in time.
81-year-old Uwari Museveni is seeking his 7th term. He's been in power since 1986. His main challenger, a musician turned politician best known as Bobby Wine, is vowing to root out corruption and bring in reforms. There's heavy security leading up to today's vote, and security forces have been accused of using violence to repress opposition parties during the campaign. The last election in 2021 was marred by violence that killed dozens of protesters. Here in this country, Ontario school boards hold thousands of pieces of publicly owned art. They range from paintings worth millions to prints worth pennies, most of it donated decades ago and rarely seen. But when CBC News asked one board for details about its collection, officials used a rare safety exemption reserved for serious threats. Colin Butler has more.
So this idea of secrecy is only a short-term solution.
Christopher Marinello has a warning for institutions that choose secrecy. He's a UK-based lawyer who specializes in recovering stolen art.
So everything that comes into an institution must be cataloged, or there's no hope for recovery.
CBC News has been examining how Ontario school boards manage publicly owned art. At the Thames Valley District School Board in London, Ontario, officials withheld key details about their collections, saying disclosure could pose a risk to staff health and safety. It's one of the strongest secrecy provisions in Ontario's information access laws, reserved for serious risks. The collection itself, 84 pieces worth $34,000 or $360 apiece. It's modest and typical, says University of Toronto Museum Studies professor Kara Krumpetich.
It looks like a pretty standard list of artworks that we see in sort of small and mid-size municipal collections.
CBC News also asked the province what it knows about the millions of dollars in art held by school boards currently under financial supervision. The answer didn't say whether those collections are tracked. A spokesperson said the government's priority is ensuring resources are directed back into classrooms. For now, the art remains publicly owned and largely unseen, with key details withheld under a safety exemption. Colin Butler, CBC News, London, Ontario.
Dragon SpaceX, comm check.
SpaceX Dragon, loud and clear.
A first-ever emergency medical evacuation by NASA. The SpaceX capsule carrying an ailing astronaut and 3 others returned to Earth just a few hours ago. The crew was working at the International Space Station, but their 6-month stint in space was cut short after one crew member fell ill. NASA says it's the first time in the 25-year history of the space station that a mission has been cut short for medical reasons. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Thursday morning, the return of a strong, windy day, and the cold across Manitoba will take a pause today. We've got a return of some warm temperatures. Thanks for joining us. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio with our team here live in downtown Winnipeg on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Well, yesterday we were talking about a fire at the Manwin on Main Street in Winnipeg. It was completely lost. This half hour on the show, we're going to hear from the Salvation Army about how they were affected. People there told to shelter in place. So stay tuned. We're going to find out more about the impact on some area organizations. Also, this hour on the program, looking at the Supreme Court in this country, there's soon going to be an open spot. But how does that vacancy get filled? We're going to talk to a political science professor about the process of that. And Elon Musk's Grok AI chatbot is at the center of a global controversy we've been talking about in our business news this week. We'll hear more about where Canada stands on the issue. Right now, let's return to those local stories I was mentioning and more with Heather Wells, who's in with headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, one of the teens involved in a school bus crash on Tuesday remembers waking up dazed and bloody. Dreda Mateway-Washing was one of 15 people on the bus that rolled after veering off the icy highway north of Swan River. The 17-year-old from Sapataway Cree Nation had been taking a quick nap when she opened her eyes to see the bus swerving. She ended up on the other side of the bus, thrown from the vehicle with a big gash on her forehead. We're going to hear more of her story. And despite the chaos caused by yesterday's fire that destroyed the vacant Manwin Hotel, staff at Winnipeg's Main Street project are thankful to see the Manwin gone. We'll hear why in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Right in that area, of course, you have the Manwin, the Main Street Project pretty much next door, and then Salvation Army down the block around the corner. There's another organization there. So it really is an area where a lot of people are often congregating. So we're very lucky that we didn't have any serious injury or loss of life yesterday in this. But as we heard, we'll hear more from Main Street about why this is, for their perspective. As Heather said, they're happy to see it gone, the building itself. Let's get into what else is happening in the weather today. I've mentioned that it's going to be really windy in parts of Manitoba. Good morning, Abby.
Yeah, good morning, Marcy. We're looking at some windy conditions coming our way. We're still tracking that for now, but in the northwest corner of the province this morning around Brochet, we have that yellow advisory in place. That's impacting surrounding areas as we're tracking blowing snow and high winds that will be creating difficult travel conditions. And it might be even a total whiteout in most of these areas until Friday morning. So you need to take it easy if you're in that part of the province this morning. But across board, we're going to see a mix of sun and clouds this morning before the snow and those gusty winds will be moving into the south, and heavy flurries continues in the northern parts of the province. For Winnipeg and the Red River Valley region this morning, we're currently sitting around -9, partly cloudy conditions. Temperatures will hover between -9 and -2 through the morning. Expect some sunshine. That would give way to a chance of flurries by the afternoon period. Then those windy conditions will roll in. We'll see our temperatures get to about 1 later in the day. Though those light winds will arrive tonight, and then we'll be seeing some blowing snow later in the Winnipeg area. But right now we are at -9 and we're heading to a high of 1 degree.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk, the commute.
Yes, so far in the city, haven't heard of any major issues. I will remind you of on the highways around Thompson, if you're taking Thompson to Lynn Lake or to Gillam, or even heading south on the number 6, very poor visibility today right now, and might see some covered highway conditions, so it just heads up there. Other than that, though, if you do see something going on, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line, whether you're walking, biking, driving. Would love to hear from you. That number, 204-788-3093.
And in case you're wondering, overheard Heather on the phone from our news department this morning, just checking on that area where the Manwin went down yesterday. So that is open entirely today to traffic around Israeli and Higgins. So you'll be able to move through there freely on the morning drive. Well, a new Supreme Court justice, as I alluded to, will be sitting on the bench in Ottawa this summer. After 8 years, Justice Sheila Martin has announced that she will retire from the country's top court at the end of May. That's a day before her 70th birthday. That means a seat for one of Canada's 9 most powerful judges will open up. Prime Minister Mark Carney is going to choose who fills it. To talk about how that decision is made in this country, Lydia Milchin is with us. She's a professor of political science at the University of Windsor. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
So Supreme Court appointments in the United States can get extremely heated politically. They often dominate headlines, less so here. But how politicized is the decision to appoint a Supreme Court judge in Canada?
Well, at the end of the day, it is a political decision, but, as you rightly point out, it certainly isn't the same kind of situation as we get in the U.S. So in Canada, it's a Governor General appointment on the advice of the Prime Minister, and it really is up to the Prime Minister how he or she wants to proceed with the appointment. Since 2016, the way in which the former Prime Minister Trudeau did it was he had a 8-person nonpartisan panel comprised of sitting and former justices, as well as sitting and former lawyers who would vet those candidates and then recommend a shortlist to the Prime Minister, who makes the ultimate decision.
Who's eligible to become a Supreme Court judge?
Well, unless you or I have been been sitting as a judge on a court, we're not eligible. Let's just put that on the table. It really does need to be somebody who has sat on a superior court for the provinces. Obviously, you're looking for a top legal scholar, somebody who's published widely in legal journals. Obviously, has to have had legal training as a lawyer and then been nominated to another court for some time. We're really looking at a very senior jurist, somebody who understands the complexity of Canadian law, constitutional law and is able to do complex analytical analysis in a non-biased manner.
Do they consider the makeup of who's already on the court in terms of decisions, or is there in the U.S. they often talk about the partisan balance on the court? Can that impact decisions in Canada?
Yeah, I don't think they're looking so much at the partisan balance because typically judges, keep their political beliefs to themselves, and they're very careful about separating the personal with the public. But there are considerations to be made in terms of regional balance, and obviously we have gender balance on the Supreme Court right now. There's also certain specific skills and things that you need to take into consideration. So, for example, if it was a Quebec-based judge that had retired, then it would certainly have to be somebody from the Quebec legal tradition that would have to be put in, because at least 3 of the Supreme Court justices have to have knowledge of the Quebec legal system. But apart from that, typically prime ministers are sensitive to issues of regional balance. Where do they practice? Where were they educated? In part because a lot of the decisions that the Supreme Court makes relate to federal-provincial relations, relate to the balance of power between the two institutions, and they do have to demonstrate that there is regional balance within the court, to the extent that you can do that with a 9-person panel.
Which is so interesting at this time, right? When we have provinces that some people in some provinces that are actually talking about shaking federation here. I do wonder, Justice Martin, people may not know, is from Alberta, I understand. So does that mean they may look to Alberta to replace her, or they may look to the West to replace her?
Yeah, I think they could do that. I mean, Martin's interesting because even though she resided in Alberta, she was educated in Quebec as well. I think that's just one of many things. If you look at, we don't have an ad right now. This is what's sort of interesting about this whole process, is that every time there's an opening, they have to create a new committee. So that's part of it. And then there's also an ad that has to be put out that actually says, these are the things we're looking at. So, last time around, they were very specific on, sort of personal skills, analytical skills, but also things about moral courage and open-mindedness and the ability to be sensitive to social demographic issues. So a lot of those things will be dependent on what's in the ad.
And what they put up now.
Yeah, and what they're going to put up, which we don't know yet.
In this moment. All right, Lydia, well, we'll wait and see what that says. And obviously too early for names, but we appreciate you being here to talk about the credential.
Thanks so much, Marcy.
That is Lydia Miljan with us, political science professor over at the University of Windsor.
If it happened today, find out today. That's the power of having the news in your hand. Get late-breaking news from reporters across the country, straight to your mobile device. Customize your experience with news from your region and what matters to you. Whether it's big headlines, detailed articles, live events, or on-demand video, CBC News has got you covered. Connect to the world. Download the free CBC News app or visit cbcnews.ca.
6:20 a.m. is the time right now, and as we've been mentioning, yesterday morning, that massive fire, and so many places impacted by it in downtown Winnipeg, on Main Street rather in Winnipeg. Shelters in that area are reacting in the aftermath of the fire and the loss of the 144-year-old Manwin Hotel, The building is completely destroyed. It used to stand right beside Main Street project that gives shelter to those experiencing homelessness, and as you might know, about 150 people were forced out of the building in the early hours yesterday morning because of the fire. They had to evacuate. That's what Main Street Project executive Jamil Mahmoud said to reporters. Of course, we covered the story on scene. Other shelters in the area are also reacting and were impacted. Frank Parks is executive director of Nadinawaymak, which is around the corner, our relative's place.
Well, the first thing we want to do is make sure that everybody has a safe place to go. And so we take a look at our numbers. We all have a certain capacity. And there's a lot of mobility between the different shelters and support organizations. So we begin discussions very early on about how we can, take more people in and provide any additional supports that are needed as we, if we lose resources. We're running at about 200. So, we took in about an extra 50 to 70 over the day. There's a lot of movement back and forth, and we'll see what those numbers look like later tonight.
So that was last night. Frank Parks, the executive director of Nadinaway Our Relatives Place. Now, another shelter that is in that immediate area and was affected and has been on the Main Street Strip is the Salvation Army. So people there were asked to shelter in place during the fire. Kristen Moran is the communications manager for the Prairies and Northern Territories Division. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
So what have you heard from people who were on the ground at the Salvation Army yesterday about, when you first people first noticed that there was a problem and how the rest of the day has gone?
What I heard from staff at the Winnipeg Center of Hope is that the staff who were working the overnight shift actually saw the flames coming from the building and smelled the fire. And they think that by the time that they got to reporting the fire, that it had already made its way to Winnipeg Fire and Paramedic Services because they were on the scene very shortly thereafter. And the Salvation Army Center of Hope was very grateful to be able to provide, coffee and a little bit of respite to those folks who were on the ground fighting the fire from the very beginning.
Did you take any people in at the Salvation Army at the Center of Hope? Or were you able to, provide spaces to those other folks that were in shelters that needed a spot, or were you full?
So throughout the day yesterday, the day room was made available and the lunchroom was opened up. Typically, it's only open during meal hours, but that was opened up for additional time to allow folks that needed to come in to get warm, just to get that first step of a little bit of comfort and care. And then overnight, yes, the staff at the Winnipeg Center of Hope did report that the 45 emergency spaces that they keep on hand were filled up. And luckily, the Center of Hope is a very large building. So the Salvation Army does have the capacity to create more spaces when necessary. So if there is need, there is the opportunity to open up more spaces and put more beds in, up to 100 more if necessary.
What's your understanding about, at this point, at least this morning, about if that's going to be necessary? Should people have to stay longer than expected?
It's an evolving situation, and I know all the heads of all the shelters have been working so well in partnership. So conversations are ongoing, and we will adjust and adapt to needs as they come up.
Okay. Is there any way the community can help out at this point? Are there needs, in that regard for any donations or things?
So the Salvation Army specifically isn't doing a general call out for donations. Donations of warm clothing is always welcome at this time of year. And I know some of the other organizations in the space definitely are asking for some specific things, but I can't speak to what they are necessarily looking for because every organization has different needs.
What's it been like overall at the Salvation Army with in the Center of Hope in terms of the swings in temperature? I'm wondering whether or not that's meant that you have had more beds open, or have you guys been just as full as area shelters have been throughout the winter, the early winter here?
The Center of Hope has not been at capacity throughout the winter so far, but with these temperature swings, the number of folks coming and going does shift from day to day.
In terms of, we're about to hear in the news some opinions about the Manwin. I'm wondering if the Salvation Army had an opinion about whether or not that was sort of a standing risk in the area, that that it was a worry. It had been a vacant building, of course.
I can't speak to that. I'm sorry.
Okay. And in terms of moving forward, then, what would you like people to know about the Salvation Army's role in the aftermath of the fire?
So the Salvation Army is grateful to be part of such a great group of service providers and shelter providers in the area. And it is so amazing to see everybody working together in partnership. So as long as the conversations continue, the Salvation Army is happy to support in any way that they can.
Did you guys have a hot dog truck out last night too, I understand?
We did. So staff from the Center of Hope have been graciously giving their time at other shelters, helping with transportation between shelters. And we did serve some food from 9 to 11 last night in the parking lot of a partner shelter as well.
Okay, well, we'll see what today brings. As you said, it's very much a day-to-day situation. Appreciate the update today, Kristen. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That is Kristen Moran. She's the communications manager for the Prairies and Northern Territories Division for the Salvation Army in Winnipeg. As you heard, folks there were asked to shelter in place during the fire, and then the Salvation Army was offering coffee to the firefighters and such. Last night they had some food going on, and they did, in fact, have some vacancy and were able to open up some of their beds last night for those that need shelter because people are out of Main Street projects still. They can expand that, so they're going to see what the day brings, and we'll certainly follow up with what's going on in that part of North Main.
Fake ads, fake stores, and even fake mistakes. Not long ago in France, Bounty candy bars were switched with Snicker wrappers on purpose.
Hey, ¿cómo se va, man?
At Snickers, we're not us when we're hungry.
The world of marketing has discovered there's money in fake-vertising on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly. Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland. And on demand on CBC Listen.
It is 6:27 a.m. and I don't know about you, but one of the things that a lot of folks do in Manitoba and in Winnipeg during the winter months is go see some tunes. Because if you want to stay warm, why not jump around? Maybe you're going to see the Funky Miracles at the Times Changed High and Lonesome Club tonight. Here they are with To Love Somebody.
A light, a certain kind of light that never shone on me. I wanted my whole life to be there with you, there with you. There's a way. Everybody says, do each and every little thing. Oh, but what good does it bring if I ain't got you? If I ain't got you, baby, you don't know what it's like. Oh, baby, to love somebody the way I love you. In my brain, I see your face again. I know my frame of mind. Why you got to be so unkind? Ever gone blind, so very blind. I'm a man, can't you see what I am? I live and I breathe for you. Oh, but what good does it do if I ain't got you? If I ain't got you, oh, baby, you don't know what it's like.
It's a great cover, huh? They'll perform that likely tonight. At least I hope they do if you're going to the show. It's a good one. Winnipeg band The Funky Miracles. This track with Noah Dirksen covering the Bee Gees classic To Love Somebody. Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it is -9. We went from melting, then freezing, now melting again. Our high today will be 1. Increasing clouds, though, through the morning, and that wind is going to pick up. Expect a good chance of flurries this afternoon. One of the teens involved in a school bus crash on Tuesday remembers waking up dazed and bloody. Dreda Mete-Washing was one of 15 people on the bus that rolled after veering off the icy highway north of Swan River. The 17-year-old from Sapatouet Cree Nation had been taking a quick nap when she opened her eyes to see the bus swerving. She ended up on the other side of the bus with a big gash on her forehead.
I was out of it. I thought I was dreaming until I felt my body hit the ground so hard. I don't really remember anything besides getting off the bus and going to another bus.
Mete-Washing was airlifted to the Health Sciences Centre in Winnipeg, along with her 16-year-old brother, Drayden Janai, and 15-year-old cousin, Michelle Chartrand. All 3 teens have now been released from the Health Sciences Centre. Now, Tracy Campo is Drea and Drayden's grandmother. She also cares for her niece, Chartrand, and had another grandchild on that bus. She says she's had a stressful couple of days since she frantically rushed to the crash scene on Highway 10. She's grateful her loved ones are expected to make a full recovery physically, but worries it might take a while for the crash's emotional toll to wear off.
When I was sleeping, I felt the bus swerve, and then all of a sudden it started rolling, and I opened my eyes and I saw the bus rolling, and then I blacked out, and I just remember waking up outside of the bus.
And that, of course, another victim. Here now is the grandma, Tracy Campo.
They enjoy getting up every day to get on that bus. But right now they're traumatized and they don't know if they want to get on that bus again.
In a statement yesterday, Shared Health says only one person remains in hospital in Swan River. Well, fire that destroyed the vacant Manwin Hotel has renewed concerns about how long unsafe buildings are allowed to sit in Winnipeg neighborhoods. Cheryl Martins is a longtime neighborhood activist in the Spence area. She says the city often waits too long to intervene, even after repeat fires.
Because usually buildings have 2 or 3 fires. If nothing happens and the owner doesn't take responsibility and claim it on insurance or doesn't have insurance, the city should take it. Just take it, because it's going to just lead to 2 more fires and then the building will be gone anyway.
City Council has recently approved changes meant to speed up the process of seizing derelict properties. That includes shorter timelines before properties can be taken over and expanded use of the city's power to take title without compensation. Now, the head of the Main Street project is happy the Manwin is gone. Executive Director Jamil Mahmoud says shelter staff were worried about fire risk from that vacant building next door. He says on Tuesday, the back door had been ripped off and someone tried to set a dumpster fire.
We were very concerned about it. That's why we had kind of fire watch on the building and had been working with the city closely to make sure it was boarded up properly. I think we probably reported about 10 or 15 times since last year where the boarding had come off or there'd been activity in the building or stuff like that. So we've been pretty on top of it.
Mahmoud says his agency wanted to buy the Manwin, but the owner was asking too much. He now says they would welcome a partnership to redevelop the site with housing. A culture of drinking and ticket fixing, just some of what a disgraced Winnipeg police officer says he saw in his 2 decades on the force. Details from CBC's Caitlin Garlick.
Former Constable Elston Bostock says he saw it when he started on the job in 2003, making traffic tickets go away for people, an unwritten rule on the force. Those details came from a psychological report prepared for Bostock's sentencing hearing this week. The report also describes a culture of drinking on the force. It says Bostock used drugs and alcohol to cope with depression, and by the end of his career was drinking and using marijuana during shifts. Bostock has pleaded guilty to offenses including drug trafficking, ticket fixing, and sharing a photo he took of the nearly naked body of a dead woman. He's expected to be sentenced next week. Caitlin Gowerlock, CBC News, Winnipeg.
There has been another shooting in Minneapolis involving a U.S. federal agent. This time, the officer shot someone in the leg. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security says the officer fired last night after being attacked with a shovel, a broom handle, while trying to make an arrest. It has been 1 week since an ICE agent shot and killed a 37-year-old protester named Renee Good. The Department of U.S. Homeland Security says Good was threatening officers with her vehicle, but Democratic politicians dispute that. You can hear the latest on this story and other national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. And an advocate for low-income Winnipeggers says the province's plan to freeze milk prices on 1-liter cartons doesn't go far enough. The government hopes the freeze will keep milk more affordable. Kate Kaler is with the Social Planning Council of Winnipeg.
It's the most expensive way to buy milk if you're buying for a family is 1 liter at a time. So having that apply to 2 liters or 4 liters would be extremely helpful.
The province says it is looking at expanding the authority to control prices of bigger jugs of milk. Kaler says the most effective way government could help low-income families with their grocery bills is to increase financial supports. You can find more news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, thank you, Heather Walls.
Thank you.
Let's get into this regional forecast now. Abby, what do we know?
Yeah, we're still tracking that yellow advisory in the north northwest corner of the province this morning, as blowing snow and high winds will be creating difficult travel and near whiteout conditions, which is expected to last until Friday morning around Brochet and surrounding communities into Friday morning. But across the province, we're seeing more like a mix of sun and clouds today before the snow is going to be moving in later in the afternoon into the evening period. Some areas might get to see heavy flurries that would continue as we track it up north this morning. Winnipeg right now, -9, partly cloudy outside. Temperatures will stay around -9 and -2 during the show and even close to the lunch break period through the morning. Expect some sunshine. That would give way to a good chance of flurries this afternoon with some breezy conditions, and then we'll see our highs get to about 1 degree later today. Though some light snow and blowing snow will move in overnight for the Winnipeg area. Similar conditions we're seeing in the Pembina Valley region this morning, -2 at this time, partly cloudy there. We will see the highs near 2 degrees with a slim chance of flurries later today. As we head west towards Brandon, currently -3, clear conditions there. Temperatures will climb to about 0. Some areas in the Westman region might even hit 1 degree later today. We have that slim chance of afternoon flurries and some gust of winds coming your way also. Dauphin is seeing some clear skies, -1 at this time. You're aiming for a high of 3 degrees. A very good chance of flurries arriving later in the Parkland region. For folks in the Gimli area, we're looking at temperatures around -9, -10, depending on where you are. Partly cloudy skies. You warm up to 1 degree later today. A chance of flurries also by the midday period should come your way. For the path, influence surrounding communities, 2 degrees at this time. High would get to 4 degrees for that part of the province, and then we'll see the temperatures crashed about -9 this afternoon as those windy conditions will be sweeping in. Thompson is currently seeing temperatures -9, -10, depending on where you are. Light snow falling at this time. Your highs would be around -2, though some overnight wind chill is going to be hitting you, so risk of frostbite will be coming into play there. We see wind chills around -31, -32. Well, for Churchill, -17 at this time. Light snow falling. Your highs would be around -13, though the wind chill is going to be hitting -45 tomorrow for folks in the Churchill area, so you need to brace for that. But for down south, we're seeing mild temperatures that should give way to some snow and maybe some windy conditions to come later in the afternoon.
How you guys doing with January? Do you hear my first guest? I think they yawned.
I heard that too. I heard that.
I wish I could just write a letter to January like, "Dear January, do we have 8 weeks in this month?"
I know.
Oh my God.
It feels like it. Holy. Yeah, Corey, you were just giving it a big stretch.
Yeah, I just don't know how to
I can't get enough sleep right now.
I know. I think it's my least favorite month.
I don't know. I mean, maybe it's like cliche, but
yeah,
it's we're in the middle of it right now, January 15th. So
all in my head is just "Dear January."
I know.
Yep.
If
That's
someone
how I
could
wake
come
up
up with a
every morning.
redeeming quality for January, I would be very impressed.
Yeah, who likes January out there? Who's listening and going, "Come on, you guys.
Yeah,
It's not that bad,"
I
or
know.
stop who likes it?
You can give us a call, 204-788-3205.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the right number.
There we go.
204-788-3205. Traffic.
Right now, haven't heard of any major issues out there. Just a reminder, though, because there was that closure because of the Manwin fire that is now clear, that is open. Up north, you might get some blowing snow and covered highway conditions around Thompson, heading towards Gillam, Lynn Lake, and even south on the Highway 6. Heads up there. Got a call from Dan on a bike who said it's some icy patches, but once he got onto the Southwest Rapid Transit, it was wonderfully sanded and smooth sailing for him on his bike. So he's having a good ride this morning. But if you do see something going on, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
It's 20 to 7 Thursday morning. Time for business news with Chrisley Ramlakan. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Marcy.
So customer complaints about telecom services are up. Can you break down the latest data for us?
Yeah, that's right. So complaints about phone, internet, and television services are up 17%. An annual study by the watchdog that handles telecom grievances says it accepted a record number of complaints in its latest reporting year, more than 23,000. So the Commission for Complaints for Telecom Television Services says it resolved 86% of the complaints that made it through its resolution process, though. So there's a little optimism there, I guess. Billing issues were the most common. They accounted for almost half of all the complaints. Most were related to incorrect charges and missing credits. And the uptick comes as consumers face an increasing cost of living. That's something we talk a lot about, right? Which may explain why people are more concerned about billing discrepancies. Contract breach complaints surged 121%. So most arose from missing features that were promised, unexpected fees, or terms appearing to have changed mid-contract. And a quarter of the complaints were about service issues such as, bad service, loss of service, and installation delays. Now, the Canadian Telecommunications Association, which represents many carriers, says the report should be viewed in the broader context of the scale and reach of communications networks. It says the number of complaints accepted by the Commission amounts to less than 0.1% of subscribers across the country.
Let's go to another story. High-end department store conglomerate Saks Global has filed for bankruptcy now. What's going on?
Yeah, so this is one of the largest retail collapses since the pandemic, and it comes barely a year after a deal that was supposed to create a luxury powerhouse. So that deal brought Saks Fifth Avenue, Bergdorf Goodman, and Neiman Marcus under the same company, Saks Global. But this filing casts uncertainty over the future of the iconic luxury fashion brand. But Saks says its stores will remain open for now after it finalized an almost $2 billion financing package and appointed a new chief executive. So this court process is meant to give the retailers some room to negotiate debt restructuring with creditors or find a new owner. Failing that, though, the company may be forced to close. And, Saks never really fully recovered from the pandemic as competition from online outlets rose and brands started selling more through their own stores. And the company struggled to pay vendors who began withholding inventory. And, it's not great for a department store that doesn't have a lot of inventory when you go in and it's all empty and you can't find what, you're looking for. Now, Saks Global was created when the Hudson's Bay Company acquired Neiman. So HBC spun off its American assets into Saks Global, a separate entity from Hudson's Bay, which, as we know now, filed for court protection last March and was forced to liquidate all of its stores across Canada.
Not a good time to be a department store. And new safety measures are being rolled out by YouTube. What can you tell us about them?
Yeah, so after creating the very addictive platform, YouTube is now letting parents limit the amount of time their teens can spend scrolling through its short-form video feature, Shorts. So the option is part of a group of new parental controls. YouTube, like many tech platforms, has ramped up efforts to protect young users in recent months in response to growing scrutiny from families, advocates, and lawmakers. So parents supervising their teens' account will be able to set time limits and reminders for breaks and bedtime. YouTube is adding a new sign-up process to make it easier for parents to create supervised accounts. And it also plans to simplify the process of switching between minor and adult accounts on shared services.
All right, Crystal Lee, thank you.
All right, thanks.
Did I miss something there? Did I interrupt you?
Oh, on shared devices, sorry. Not services, shared devices. Yeah.
Important correction. All right, take care. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thanks, Marcy.
That's Crystal Lee Ramlicam with our business news live on CBC. Well, still ahead on the program this morning, we will be hearing more from some of the kids who were injured in the Swan River bus crash who are being discharged from the Health Sciences Centre. So we're going to hear more. You've heard in the news starting to hear some of their stories. So that is also coming up in a feature in the next hour of Information Radio. Right now, though, let's talk about the cost of buying a car. It has risen significantly in the last 5 years, and experts point to supply chain issues, interest rates, and U.S. tariffs. For anyone in the market to buy a car right now, navigating how much that's going to be can be daunting. Personal finance columnist Rubina Ahmed Huq has more.
Buying a car is expensive, regardless of the model you choose. For many, it may be the most costly purchase they've ever made. Understanding how much car you can afford can be hard.
They've gone up far faster and higher than ever before in recent history. Car prices are now over $60,000 on average for new vehicles and around $35,000 on average for used vehicles, which is approximately 30% increase versus the prices from just a few years ago.
Shari Primack is the director with Car Help Canada. He says the pandemic restrictions created supply chain issues, which pushed prices higher. That, followed by higher interest rates and then U.S. tariffs, have kept prices rising. He says this has also weakened a buyer's ability to bargain.
Dealers are still very much holding firm on pricing, not much price negotiation going on, not very many incentives, and a lot of them are still charging fees and products to inflate the price.
He adds that the purchase price is only one part of the expense of owning a car. There's also insurance, maintenance, and gas, and those aren't cheap either.
The thing we say is to consumers, slow down.
Maureen Harquail is the CEO and registrar of the Ontario Motor Vehicle Industry Council. She says buyers should make sure dealers of used and new vehicles are registered with organizations such as OMVIC, which is Ontario-based, but there are similar organizations across Canada, including the Alberta Motor Vehicle Industry Council and Manitoba Motor Dealers Association.
Make sure that you are dealing with a registered, OMVIC registered motor vehicle dealer. Because if you do so, you will have consumer protections with that purchase. If you buy from a private seller or an illegal seller, you will have no protections, and OMVIC will not be able to help you.
When a vehicle is registered with an organization such as OMVIC, consumers are assured that sellers follow the rules and meet clear standards of fairness and professionalism. Here are some red flags people should watch out for.
Obviously, number one, selling from a location that is unusual. It's not a dealership, for example. They'll say that they're selling for a friend or a family member. The name on the ownership may not match their identification, and in fact, they may not even want to provide you with their identification. The car might be sold out of a parking lot or on the street. The other thing is that you're pressured to act quickly and pay cash. Like, do it now because I've got someone else coming to look at this car.
Harquail says with car prices rising, sellers are targeting buyers on a tight budget. But in the end, this could cost you more than what you save. She says they have a clear agenda for consumers.
Particularly to be aware of what their rights are and to have that knowledge when they walk into that dealership, to know what to expect from a dealership, what are the standards that they can expect a dealer to meet, and to be confident in the process.
Both experts say do your research before looking at any car, especially when buying used. Harquail adds, make sure you understand the total all-in cost, and points out there is no cooling off period for car sales. Once you drive it off the lot, you can't return it, no matter how quickly you decide it's not for you. For CBC Radio, I'm Rubina Ahmed Haq.
Time right now is 10 to 7, and if you are driving this morning, just to note that Disraeli around Higgins is all open on Main Street, that is, around Disraeli. Because of the fire yesterday, we had a whole bunch of street closures. We don't have anything closed this morning. Our news department had checked early. And if you're on the highways, check 511 before you head out. We are having challenges, or at least an advisory that there could be some challenges coming with blowing snow around Brochet and the northwestern part of Manitoba today. Currently in Winnipeg, it's -9 and partly cloudy, and there is growing international push right now, as you may have heard us reporting, to ban Elon Musk's AI chatbot Grok. It's under fire after it was used to generate sexually explicit and non-consensual images of women and children. The UK's online safety watchdog has launched an investigation. Malaysia and Indonesia have already banned Grok entirely. Canadian officials say they're not considering a ban at this time. The government says it will continue discussions about it, though. Francis Sims covers tech issues with us, and he's here to talk about Grok. Good morning.
Good morning.
What makes it different from, AI models like, other chatbots, Gemini, ChatGPT? What is it about Grok?
Yeah, I think it comes down to two things. One is leadership, right? Elon Musk, who runs X, Twitter, Grok, is bombastic in the news frequently, and talks a lot about free speech in the way that he interprets free speech. What that means for Grok, though, is that if you ask Grok a question, can you generate an image, an intimate image of somebody, say in a bikini? Up until a few days ago, Grok would just do it. So, the fact is that the guardrails are off when it comes to Grok for the most part, whereas the other platforms are more careful, like ChatGPT and Gemini. That's number one. The second thing is the way it engages with the user. If I was to upload an image to, say, X, and then somebody else took my image right in the platform on my social media feed and said, can you take that image and change the color of the shirt that Francis is wearing? It would do it. And then it might ask, can you take the shirt off altogether or put Francis in a bikini? It might do that. And post it immediately to my feed. So the harm is immediate in that situation. It's not like with the other platform like ChatGPT or Gemini, where you ask it to create the image, you have to download the image, and then you upload it to social media. Here, the platform does it itself, and there's not even time to do content moderation. So the impact is much more significant in real time than the other platforms as a result.
And some media outlets are reporting some very disturbing things about what images have showed up involving children. Malaysia and Indonesia are banning Grok, as I mentioned, but how does a country actually just ban AI?
It's really hard. Like, this is the first time we're starting to talk about this. So it's easy to ban Grok in terms of the website, grok.com. The countries can just ban people from going to it. No problem. They might use a VPN and get around it. People get around things all the time. But what happens when you're trying to ban something, an AI tool that's embedded in another platform? So Grok is embedded in X and Twitter. So what that likely means, if you're a country like Indonesia and Malaysia, and you don't have influence with Elon Musk, you're not a country of influence, then you likely don't have any power there. And the only choice is to ban Twitter altogether. So, okay, do we really care about Twitter? Maybe X, maybe not. But what happens when AI in 5 years is embedded into, say, your blood pressure machine at home or your thermostat? And somebody was to say, okay, maybe if you're in the US, you're on food stamps. That means you can't have the heat higher than a certain amount in a certain part of the day. How do you ban the AI that's in that thermostat? It's very difficult. So it's sort of an existential question that we're starting to ask ourselves, and we're starting to see it realized in countries like Malaysia and Indonesia as a result.
Elon Musk continues, by the way, to deny that there's any problem here. Meantime, the UK is also fighting this. You said that, Malaysia and Indonesia may not have a big impact on Elon Musk's perspective on this. But what about the UK?
Yeah, the UK is a jurisdiction of influence, and they've had some successes just in the last 12 hours, and they've been helped by Europe and the state of California. So they push back, and in the UK, they have a law that they can hold the platform accountable if it distributes these non-consensual images. Whereas in Canada, if a person distributes them, they can be held to account. But if the platform does it, it's kind of a gray area. In the UK, Elon Musk's company could be fined maybe 5 or 6% of global revenues for a year. It's significant. And Elon Musk has Starlink, Tesla, all these other things that he wants to sell to the citizens of the UK and to Europe. In fact, he just signed a deal with the Pentagon to deploy Grok all through the US defense network. He would want to do the same thing with NATO. So he's listening. Initially, his first response was that, okay, I'm only going to let people that are premium users generate these images. The UK was not satisfied with that. And just in the last 12 hours, he's reversed his position. And he's now said that in jurisdictions where it's illegal to distribute non-consensual images, you're not even going to be allowed to create them. So we haven't seen actually how that's implemented yet, but that's arguably a bit of a win for the UK in this situation and the world, I think.
What's Canada weighing here?
Well, I think we're weighing, obviously, the harm to Canadians against the risk of censorship and limiting free speech, because ultimately, if they start to ban things, somebody has to make the decision as to what's good and what's not good, right? And also, Elon Musk is very close to President Trump. There was a picture with him having dinner with him just a few weeks ago. And we're already in a situation with the US administration where it's difficult for Canadians with tariffs and other things. And they're probably weighing that as well. But the challenge here is that, is Canada really a country of influence. That's the challenge that we're facing. And I'm not sure, with respect to Elon Musk, we are. So likely what we're doing is just waiting and seeing what happens with Europe, which is okay. But the problem is that it can really hurt Canadians now. Like, a child can create an image potentially of another child and take it to school and distribute it among their peers. That's a bad and really negative thing that could happen to a child, to their family. So the Canadian government can wait, but not too long, because it has a negative impact, I think, on society.
All right, Francis, thank you very much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
That is Francis Sims, our technology columnist. He's an associate dean of the Faculty of Applied Sciences and Technology over at Humber Polytechnic. It is right now 3 minutes to 7 o'clock, and still ahead in the next hour of the show. It has been 1 year to the day since the Sutherland Hotel burned down, and now a community housing organization is visiting the site. They are hoping to rally the community to build some new housing there for people, a new type of model, smaller units. We're going to hear about their plans and what has been holding up their project. We understand they are close to a deal. They actually had wanted to buy the Sutherland before it burned, and they're still interested in that property. Of course, we also now have the Manwin property up the way. And so we'll have that conversation with the developer who's going to be in studio with us in the next hour of the show. Also in the next hour of Information Radio, coming up right after 7 o'clock here on the program, we are going to hear from Councillor Ross Eady. He spoke to CBC's Jim Agapito at City Hall overall at the bigger issue in Winnipeg about what needs to be done to prevent fires in vacant buildings like the Manwin and the Sutherland, which wasn't vacant but burned down as well. All right, let's go to Heather Welsh. She has details on these stories and also other stories in the news today and developments with our headlines this Thursday morning. Hi, Heather.
Hi there. Good morning. Well, all 3 teens airlifted to Winnipeg after a school bus crash have now been released from hospital. They were among 15 people on a bus that rolled after veering off the icy highway north of Swan River on Tuesday. 15-year-old Michelle Chartrand says she had dozed off on her way to school when the bus went out of control. She woke up to see the bus rolling and then blacked out. We're going to hear more from her. An advocate for low-income Winnipeggers says the province's plan to freeze milk prices on 1-liter cartons doesn't go far enough. Kate Kaler at the Social Planning Council of Winnipeg says the price freeze should also be applied to 2- and 4-liter jugs of milk. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 7:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
We want to remind you, City Crews in Winnipeg will start to plow back lanes today, and they're starting in a minute. So 7 a.m., you're going to start to see those crews out there, so be careful. Weather-wise, yellow level advisory for blowing snow in the northwest part of the province, including Brochet. And we have really windy conditions across the province today. In Winnipeg, winds south, they'll gust 40 to 60. Brandon also with strong winds, and same with Thompson actually today. Mainly sunny in Winnipeg to start, and then a 60% chance of afternoon flurries with those high winds. Our temperature returns to warmth today, a high of 1 degree. And then this looks like the last day in a while, and we dip back to minus 22 by Saturday. So we're just all over the place. Currently in Winnipeg, it is partly cloudy, and it's minus 9. World Report's next on CBC.
On the current. 80 Canadians have been just named to the Order of Canada, and those on the list represent a huge variety of fields. We'll hear from country music star Terry Clark and champion of the trades, Mandy Ranahan.
For me, it's to look at all of it and say, anybody can make change.
That's coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland. And on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. Iran says Erfan Soltani will not be sentenced to death. He's the 26-year-old man who was arrested last week during anti-regime demonstrations. There were reports he was going to be executed yesterday, but as Crystal Gamansing tells us, there are still grave concerns for the thousands of people who have been arrested.
I wouldn't take at face value everything that this regime is saying.
Simon Fraser is the former head of the UK's Foreign Office. He says that statements on Fox News from Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi are a deflection.
There is no plan for hanging at all.
Whether or not there are executions planned, the fate of those prisoners is not going to be a pleasant one. It seems to me that what the regime is doing at the moment is seeking to buy time, probably to stabilize the situation.
And it appears to have worked for now. U.S. President Donald Trump has gone from threatening military action to saying he's watching the situation. Still, Americans have shuffled staff and equipment on military bases in the Middle East. The UK temporarily shuttered its embassy in Tehran, fearing it could be a target. And numerous countries, including Canada, have instructed citizens in Iran to leave. Global Affairs Canada says it is aware of the death of one Canadian in Iran. It did not provide any information about the circumstances. Aviar Sheikhi with the human rights group Hengar says the family of Irfan Soltani is worried about his fate.
They are still in a shock mode, and now they just hear that the sentence only has been postponed. It means more uncertainty.
A state of unrest and unease that many inside and outside of Iran are experiencing. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, London.
To Minneapolis, and another shooting by an ICE agent. It comes 1 week after the fatal shooting of 37-year-old Renee Good. Federal officials say officers were chasing a Venezuelan man. One officer got into a scuffle with the man when two people reportedly came out of a nearby apartment building. They allegedly attacked the officer with a shovel and broom handle. Authorities say he fired in self-defense, hitting the Venezuelan man in the leg. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry is criticizing ICE for the shooting, but he also has words for the protesters.
I've seen conduct from ICE that is disgusting and is intolerable. And for anyone that is taking the bait tonight, stop. That is not helpful. Go home. We cannot counter Donald Trump's chaos with our own brand of chaos.
Both the officer and the man who was shot were sent to hospital. The two others have been taken into custody. Allied countries are rallying around Denmark as it plans to bolster defenses in Greenland. Germany, Norway, and Sweden are among the nations deploying troops in a show of support. The question becomes, though, is the new focus on security aimed at Russia and China or the U.S.? Murray Brewster explains.
If you start seeing certain movements, U.S. logistics forces.
Sean Maloney, a professor of history at the Royal Military College of Canada, on what we should be looking for if, and I say if, the U.S. is serious about taking Greenland by force.
Reconnaissance aircraft conducting their activities. There's a whole bunch of things that will be seen by the open source intelligence community.
Maloney says military operations just don't appear out of nowhere. They require preparation, a lot of which can't be hidden. Denmark's defense ministry announced yesterday it was going to bolster its military forces in Greenland along with NATO allies. On paper, it's meant to answer U.S. security concerns. Other defense experts, such as Steve Seidemann at Carleton University, say the planned exercise could be considered as a warning to the U.S., more so than Russia or China.
Members of the alliance are putting together a tripwire to try to deter Donald Trump. Tells you we are very much in unprecedented times where we could very much be facing tomorrow, next week, next month, American troops pointing their guns at Danish troops, and those troops pointing their guns back.
The foreign ministers of both Denmark and Greenland met with U.S. Vice President and Secretary of State in Washington yesterday and said afterwards U.S. President Donald Trump's desire to acquire the Arctic island hasn't changed, but they're going to keep talking. Murray Brewster, CBC News, Ottawa.
Today, Prime Minister Mark Carney's trip to Beijing is all about improving the relationship between Canada and China. Several MOUs have been signed highlighting the areas those two countries can work together, including an MOU on energy. Natural Resources Minister Tim Hodgson says China is hungry for more oil and gas.
They are very clear they would like more Canadian energy products, yes.
But as China signals it would like to invest more in clean and green technologies, Industry Minister Melanie Joly is assuring Canadians the government is still thinking about national security.
It's important to remember that the Investment Canada Act was recently modified to increase powers of the government to make sure that we would have the guardrails important when it comes to national security and economic security.
In 2012, the Harper government put strict restrictions on oil sands investment, fearing foreign government influence. Ukrainian officials say emergency repair crews are working around the clock to restore power to the country's capital. Russian drone and missile attacks on power plants and other energy infrastructure have left thousands of people in the dark in Kyiv and the surrounding region. Many neighborhoods have been without electricity for almost a week now in winter weather. The temperature in Kyiv right now is minus 13 degrees. The Supreme Court of Canada is wrapping up hearings in a case that revisits the We Charity scandal, the pandemic-era controversy that ultimately saw Justin Trudeau cleared of wrongdoing. The top court is taking a closer look now, and as Olivia Stefanovich reports, it could change the way elected officials are held to ethical standards.
If the ethics commissioner can't be challenged in court, you have a closed loop.
As the co-founder of Democracy Watch, Duff Conacher has led many fights to improve political accountability. But this is the first time his advocacy group is a main party before the top court, in a case that asks for the opportunity to challenge a 2021 decision by the federal ethics commissioner, a ruling that cleared Justin Trudeau of wrongdoing in the We Charity scandal, after the Liberal government gave the organization a multi-million-dollar contract amid family connections to the former Prime Minister.
That only should make the ethics commissioner function better.
If the High Court sides with Conacher, the decision could not only have implications for Trudeau's ethics finding, but how watchdogs operate across the country.
Because it's clarifying the extent to which the court can watch them effectively.
Brandon Barnes-Trickett is following the hearings at the Supreme Court of Canada closely. He's a partner in public law litigation at Dentons Canada.
The consequence, I think, would be that there would be greater opportunities for review of those decision makers' decisions.
But in exchange for increased accountability, he says there will also be a rise in administrative work, the timeliness of delivering justice, and costs, all factors the top court will weigh on this final day of hearings. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Ottawa.
And finally, AI-powered toys are proving to be a big draw at Asia's largest toy fair being held in Hong Kong. Thousands of exhibitors are there with more than 30 countries on hand, with most trying to expand into new markets from Europe and the Middle East. As Laura Westbrook explains, the Trump administration's tariffs are pushing them away from U.S. customers.
Even though I don't have a mouth like you, I can still talk to you and understand what you're saying. Isn't that amazing?
This is Sunny. He's a stuffed capybara with a difference. He talks back using AI technology. Michelle de la Victoria Granados represents the China-based company that created Sunny.
Pretty much it answers to everything. We have safety words because this is a toy for children. So we make sure that everything that it says, it's safe, has educational purpose, and moreover, it's fun for the children.
De la Victoria Granados says Sunny is still in the developing stage, but her company hopes to sell their AI toys worldwide.
We have a lot of clients from different regions in the world, mainly Europe and North America, very interested in this kind of toy.
China announced record export numbers last year, even with trade to the US weakening. More Chinese goods went to Southeast Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Some exhibitors, including Chinese AI toy companies, are looking to markets from Europe to Asia instead of the United States because of its tariff policies. Hans Christian von der Kroon is president of the Swiss Toy Association.
You see less American buyers, less American companies over here for sure. And so the markets will for sure be Europe, India probably, Middle East, those markets.
He says he was at the fair to connect with his existing partners in mainland China, as well as smell out the latest trends.
Definitely AI is here to stay.
Laura Westbrook for CBC News, Hong Kong.
And that is the latest from World Report. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us. Middle of the month, January 15th. And Winnipeg is -9. We're going to have a mild day, but very windy in the province. Well, 1 year ago today,
I think we have to remember that cities are living organisms, and they want to heal themselves.
the Sutherland Hotel burned down. Yesterday, the Manwin Hotel burned down, both on Main Street. We're going to talk to that housing developing organization about their plans to, quote, help heal the city. They actually are from BC, but they're in Winnipeg today. They had plans to buy the Sutherland in the works before it burned down. They still want to build on that property. We'll find out what their plans are and why they say they have some good ideas that will help our city, that have helped in BC in creating safe, clean, affordable housing for people. Something that obviously we need, not just on that area of Main Street, but all over Winnipeg. So they will be in studio with us, that developer, with that news today. With other news headlines and developing stories, here now is Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, one of the teens involved in a school bus crash on Tuesday remembers waking up dazed and bloody. Drea Mateway-Washing was one of 15 people on a bus that rolled after veering off an icy highway north of Swan River. The 17-year-old from Sapataway Cree Nation had been taking a quick nap when she opened her eyes to see the bus swerving, ended up on the other side of the bus with a big gash of her forehead. We're going to hear from another teen who was also on that bus and from a family member about what she was told by police, that it was a good thing the snow was soft that day because hard snow would have made the outcome even worse. And a housing advocate says it was just a matter of time before fire destroyed the vacant Man Win Hotel on Main Street. Marion Willis at St. Boniface Street Link says almost every shuttered building in Winnipeg ends up razed by fire. We'll hear more from her coming up at 7:30.
I washed my car, Heather Wells. And now today it's going to be warm, so I'm going to have to pull a U and drive around carefully, I think.
You know what? When it's melting, I don't know that even works. Like there's no avoiding it.
Well, we have today to get through. I might have done this a little bit early because then tomorrow it gets cold again, so maybe I should have waited.
Yeah, tomorrow's the day. You'll wash tomorrow.
Let's get into what's happening with this weather forecast. Abby's in with that.
Yeah, Marissa, still tracking conditions in the northwestern part of the province this morning for folks around Brochet. You might be waking up to blowing snow this morning, and this will be creating really whiteout conditions for that part of the province. Hence, that yellow warning and yellow advisory we have in effect for that part of the province. While the rest of the province sees more like cloudy conditions, a bit of sunshine here and there, and temperatures falling. Here in Winnipeg, currently, depending on where you are, it might read -9. Some areas reading -8 this morning. Partly cloudy conditions are waking up to. Temperatures will hover between -9 and -2 for the morning. Then we'll see some sunshine that will be giving the way to a good chance of flurries by the afternoon period. Some breezy conditions will come, and then we warm up to 1 degree later today. We're expecting light snow and blowing snow to move in later in the evening when temperatures drop to about -12 with a wind chill near -25 in the city. Across the southern part of the province, we're looking at temperatures around -1 to -9. Highs would be close to -4 in some regions. Most of the areas will see it's going to get to 4 degrees in most of the regions down south. Some areas would see 2 degrees. A good chance of flurries around the Gimli and the Parkland area. But up north, we're looking at temperatures around 4 degrees and -16 at this time, with temperatures falling and the wind chill hitting -39 later tonight. But for Winnipeg, we are at -8 at this time, and we get to 1 degree later, though some flurries might sweep in later.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey is here to tell us what's going on in your morning drive, walk, or roll.
Yeah, so far it's been a fairly quiet commute here in the city. I will let folks know that at 7, crews started plowing back lanes. I'm sure, like most people, that thaw melt, they're looking pretty ruddy, pretty gnarly there. So their city says crews are going to start plowing. They started plowing at 7, so just heads up if you have maybe one of those people that you let your garbage kind of protrude along to the back lane a little bit. Might want to pull it back there. Other than that, though, up north, if you are in Thompson area, those highways heading to Gilliman Lake, even south, some blowing snow, poor conditions on the highways, some poor visibility potentially this morning for you, according to Manitoba 511. Other than that, though, if you do see something else going on, seems like it's a fairly smooth commute overall, but if it's not where you are, you can give me a call. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, throughout this morning, you're going to hear a number of different news stories and items on our program looking at that section of Main Street where the Manwin burned yesterday, because there's a number of different layers to this story, right? There was the immediate disaster aftermath. There was the challenge of moving people. In the last hour, we talked to the Salvation Army. They sheltered in place. Main Street Project, of course, evacuated some people who had been there in their shelter. There's also a lot of history that has been lost. So the Manwin was 144 years old. It did stand between Logan and Henry. The fire started early yesterday morning. That building has been vacant, though, for a year, and it is a total loss. It's completely gone. This is also the second hotel, as we've been alluding to, that has burned in a year. Last January on this day, as I mentioned, the Sutherland Hotel was lost, also destroyed by fire. So next on the show, we're going to look at the impact overall at the neighborhood. What does a fire like this do to the community? CBC's Jim Agapito spent some time down in that part of Main Street and spoke to some Winnipeggers in the area.
My name is Daniel Gaumont.
The Manwin Hotel has just burned down. I'm wondering, how do you feel about that?
Well, you know what? I'm happy to see it go. I have some history there. My father was a resident there for many years. I moved him out, and when I moved him out, I didn't think it was even fit for humans to be in there. There were so many bugs, and I know it's been vacant for a while, and it honestly just kind of stood as a testament of kind of what failed in Winnipeg. So now with it gone, I hope that there's going to be a new building there put in its place, and it'll help to alleviate some of the needs that we have in this area. So even though it's a sad thing that any kind of fire, we know we had to move out the shelter right beside it. It made a bit of a fuss today, and it's going to be a little bit of a headache on traffic. But in the long run, it's going to be a good thing for Winnipeg with making room for a new build.
My name is Caitlin Lesage. I don't like hearing about fires, especially 2 in a year in the same area. Like, that makes me just really sad.
Now, when a building like that burns down in downtown, what do you think that does for the overall morale of the area?
Honestly, I think it lowers it. You get people going downtown all the time. It's one of the main busy streets. Having something burned down on a main busy street brings everybody down.
Everett Military.
What would you like to see done to prevent things like that from happening, like the fire and whatnot?
It's going to happen. Like in poor areas, people who give up, they look at the litter. There's litter everywhere. People going through trash cans. People give up. So this area, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, because it's going to be poverty no matter where. And this is where this is the major. This is where most of the people end up, is in this area.
Are you from this area? Do you live around here? Or
yeah, I'm just over 55 plus place, just on a couple blocks down.
Seeing that, as being a resident of this area, how does that make you feel then?
Oh, it's sad, but there's always going to be people with addictions and poor people on drinking. Mental health, people, they don't really take care of people with mental health. It's like that everywhere. Every city's got their bad area, and this is it.
CBC's Jim Agapito speaking to some Winnipeggers on Main Street and through the downtown area about the loss of the Manwin Hotel yesterday. That hotel was not, as you heard, always vacant. It did once serve as long-term residence for dozens of people. It had been the subject of dozens of visits, though, by city inspectors because of the safety of the building. So what actually needs to be done to prevent more fires in vacant buildings like the Manwin? City Councillor Ross Eady also was in conversation with Jim over at City Hall.
Councillor Eady, another vacant building has burned down on Main Street. How do you feel about this?
Well, it is troubling. And you'll note all these buildings are very old. And it's dangerous for people. So it's very problematic. And it's not just, big commercial buildings along Main Street. There's fires in vacant buildings all around the inner city, in the older areas where you'll mostly find, not everybody, but you'll mostly find people who are living homeless and living in poverty, where there's real problems that they're trying to deal with themselves because they've become desperate.
Now, what is the city doing to stop vacant buildings from catching fire?
I'm not sure. We still don't know how the fire started, but could have been people going in there looking for copper or whatever to make money to feed their addictions. What's happening is you have people living homeless or people with addictions who may have a home or whatever, and they're going into buildings. In this case, maybe it was somebody going in to keep warm. There are encampments around, and I'm not sure that all of the, what do they call it, weather places where they could go indoors because the weather's really cold. Again, most of these buildings are in areas that are experiencing a lot of poverty, a lot of crime, and a lot of homelessness around it.
Now, the city is looking to change the rules on taking title without compensation. Could those rule changes prevent a fire like this?
Again, even if a city owns a building, that doesn't prevent the fire. People are trying to find their ways in. We increased the level of solid boarding on places. That doesn't seem to work. People are going indoors. What can happen is if we take possession without compensation, which really helps the city because we don't really have a budget to obtain these buildings. We usually end up with things through tax sale. Once the government owns it, which would be the city of Winnipeg, we can try various means of resolving it. But taking title means that it's supposed to mean we're going to take faster action on dealing with those properties. So hopefully the government can make things happen faster. That's taking title, because some of these properties just sit for years, right?
That is City Councillor Ross Eady at City Hall in conversation with CBC's Jim Agapito about vacant properties. In our next half hour of the program, coming up just before 8 o'clock, we're going to be talking to Keith Gordon. He's the executive director of a nonprofit housing organization, developer, Anhart Community Housing. He's in Winnipeg. He's from BC, and he is interested in redeveloping at the Sutherland. We understand late last night there was some development in terms of signing a deal to take over that property. We'll find out from him where that's at, and also what they want to build there. When you look at their materials, though, of what they're interested in developing in terms of supportive housing and social housing projects, they also in their materials have highlighted the Manwin. They have a picture, actually, when you look at properties they have looked at and identified in Winnipeg that could be good for the model that they propose works and has worked in their cities in BC. So we're going to ask him certainly about the Sutherland, but also about the Manwin. That's coming up on Information Radio.
The PWHL is back for the third season of heart-stopping women's hockey. And this season, there are two new teams looking to make their mark on the ice. The Seattle Torrent and Vancouver Golden Eyes. When the world's best women's hockey players face off, anything can happen. Will the Minnesota Frost achieve a three-peat? Will a new team take home the trophy? There's only one way to find out. Watch the PWHL for free on CBC Gem.
Bit of music from William Prince ahead of his April 25th show at the Concert Hall. This is Flowers on the Dash.
Well, there's flowers on the dash, 'cause she don't want them. Now I'm driving all alone back to Chatham. Rode up with my blues and I still got them. There's flowers on the dash, 'cause she don't want them. Well, I wish you would have called ahead, I'd have saved you the trouble. 'Cause you can still go straight to hell, and I shouldn't have to tell you double. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, won't stick around to see. You and all your sorrows can keep driving. Well, there's flowers on the dash, 'cause she don't want them. Now I'm driving all alone back to Chatham. Rode up with my blues and I still got them. And there's flowers on the dash, 'cause she don't want them. I would have listened when you told me you were leaving. This time won't be like the last time, babe, I got a feeling. Give and take, mend and break, Why's it always gotta be this way? Oh, for goodness sake, can we just go for a little drive? Well, there's flowers on the dash, 'cause she don't want them. Now I'm driving all alone back to Chatham. Rode up with my blues and I still got them. And there's flowers on the dash, 'cause she don't want them. Well, there's flowers on the dash, 'cause she don't want them. Now I'm driving all alone back to Chatham. Rode up with my blues and I still got them. And there's flowers on the dash, 'cause she don't want them.
Classic country from William Prince. He's playing April 25th at the Centennial Concert Hall. That show, if not yet sold out, was pretty darn close. Tried to get tickets myself, and it was hard to find good seats. Enjoy the show if you secured some tickets. We're coming up to time for sports here, 7:25, and Paul McGowan is in again for Scott Regehr. Hello there.
Hi, Marcy.
Let's start with hockey, and the Jets, they look for their 4th win in a row tonight.
And looking for that win against a Minnesota Wild team that does sit in 3rd place in the Central, but they've also lost 4 of their last 5. As for the Jets, they are still 8 points out of a playoff spot. A daunting place to be this late in a season, but Coach Scott Arniel spoke yesterday about how the Jets are approaching things.
I actually mentioned to the players, all we're doing is trying to pick off the team ahead of us. There's one team that's 1 point ahead of us. There's a couple others that are, I think, 3 points ahead of us. Just pick off the next team. We're not looking at whoever it is right now. Is it San Jose, Utah, whoever that's sitting up there? Pick off the next team above us. Keep trying to do that, and hopefully, other games will have to happen. Things will have to happen within those, with other teams as well. And hopefully that when you win, they lose, and you gain ground.
An interesting way to look at things from Scott Arniel. And if the Jets can win tonight and get some help, they would leapfrog Calgary, the team that is 1 point ahead of them. Puck drop in Minnesota at 7.
There's a surprise Canadian qualifier in tennis at the Australian Open.
24-year-old Liam Draxl of Ontario. He beat American Mackenzie McDonald in the final round of qualifying yesterday, earns his way into his first ever Grand Slam event. And Draxl is a little bit unconventional by tennis standards, was on court yesterday rocking a backwards baseball cap and a sleeveless top, and was really animated at points, flexing and yelling, "Let's go," at the Australian Open crowd. He's also, Marcy, one of the louder players you'll hear when he's in the middle of a rally. Pretty intense energy from Liam Draxl, and that whole on-court persona is something he's been asked about in the past.
I feel like I'm never going to blow a guy off the court, so I don't know. You have to create that atmosphere where I feel like your opponent has to, know you're there or feel you a little bit. I try to just pump myself up. I don't believe it's directed at my opponents, so I don't feel like I'm anything too crazy to my opponent. I'm just doing my thing and competing hard.
Liam Draxl may be a professional wrestler in a past life. Now, he's not the only Canadian qualifier down under. We also have Marina Stikuzic through on the women's side.
That can get in your opponent's head, though. For sure.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. And it's nice to hear someone be so candid about it, too.
Let's end on soccer. Canada continues World Cup preparation in California.
A bunch of different storylines there, including news yesterday that for the first time since the qualification round for the 2022 World Cup, Canada will host a game in Edmonton, which of course is where Canada earned that huge win over Mexico a couple of years ago, vaulting themselves to the top of CONCACAF qualifying. Coach Jesse Marsh says that being back in Edmonton will be good for the national team veterans.
That moment in time, I think, actually helped these players believe that they were good, that they could do this. We've tried to continue the belief for this team, and I think kicking it off in Edmonton, our first stop as a team for the preparation in the World Cup, can bring back a moment where it all really took off in a way that led this team to believe that they could be truly great, is perfect.
That game in Edmonton will be much different than the Canada-Mexico game there in 2022. That 2022 game had frigid temperatures, snow on the pitch. It was the full Canadian experience. June in Edmonton is going to look just a little bit different.
No doubt. By the way, if people are watching you streaming on YouTube this morning, I love your little Vladdy shirt.
Oh, thank you. Yes, That was a gift from my girlfriend during the playoffs.
Love it. It's one of the good ones. All right, take care.
Thanks, Marcy.
Paul McGowan with Morning Sports. We're coming up to news time at 7:30, and then we'll talk about how mild it is in the forecast and the fact that we do have, however, a blowing snow advisory for parts of northwest Manitoba. Right now, though, your CBC News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it is -8. Another mild day on the way. A high today of 1. Enjoy it because it's the last mild day for a while. All 3 teens airlifted to Winnipeg after a school bus crash have been released from hospital. They were among 15 people on a bus that rolled after veering off the highway north of Swan River Tuesday morning. 15-year-old Michelle Chartrand says she dozed off on her way to school when the bus went out of control.
When I was sleeping, I felt the bus swerve, and then all of a sudden it started rolling, and I opened my eyes and I saw the bus rolling, and then I blacked out, and I just remember waking up outside of the bus.
Chartrand believes she was thrown from the rolling bus through a side window. She says her back is still sore after being released from the Health Sciences Centre yesterday afternoon. Now, Tracy Campo is Chartrand's aunt. She's also the grandmother of the other 2 teens who had been airlifted to HSC. She says she was frantic when she heard her family members were involved, but after rushing to the crash site, she was relieved to learn no one had been killed.
One of the policemen said it would have been worse if the snow was hard, but the snow was soft that day, and that's what saved those children that flew out of the windows, and one of them was my grandson.
Campos says doctors tell her all 3 of the teens will make a full recovery. In a statement yesterday, Shared Health says only 1 person remains in hospital in Swan River. A housing advocate says the fire that destroyed the vacant Man-Win Hotel on Main Street yesterday was predictable. Marion Willis is the executive director at St. Boniface Street Links.
To me, it was simply a matter of time until this happened. It was the inevitable. Almost every shuttered building in Winnipeg ends up razed by fire. Obviously, what we're doing isn't working.
The city of Winnipeg ordered the hotel to close in January last year because of safety concerns. Yesterday, raging fire caused the building to collapse. City officials argue the city is making efforts to intervene sooner by taking control of properties left to deteriorate. Council recently approved changes to speed up how the city deals with vacant buildings, including expanded use of its power to seize properties without compensation and shorter timelines before properties can be taken over. Now, despite the chaos it caused, staff at Main Street Project are thankful the Man-Win is gone. The fire at that vacant hotel forced 150 clients out of the shelter. Many now are staying at a makeshift shelter at the Freight House Community Centre on Isabel. Jamil Mahmoud is executive director at the Main Street Project.
It's probably too early to celebrate having that building gone. It's been a really horrible place for the community. It's been a place where there's been a ton of murders and harm caused to the neighborhood. So I know there's been a lot of people calling for it to come down. And so hopefully, those that have had tragic experiences there can get a bit of rest knowing it's no longer there.
Mahmoud says his agency would be happy to be part of a redevelopment of the Man-Win site, preferably with housing. A culture of drinking and ticket fixing. Just some of what a disgraced Winnipeg police officer says he saw in his 2 decades on the force. Details from CBC's Caitlin Garlick.
Former Constable Elston Bostock says he saw it when he started on the job in 2003, making traffic tickets go away for people, an unwritten rule on the force. Those details came from a psychological report prepared for Bostock's sentencing hearing this week. The report also describes a culture of drinking on the force. It says Bostock used drugs and alcohol to cope with depression, and by the end of his career was drinking and using marijuana during shifts. Bostock has pleaded guilty to offenses including drug trafficking, ticket fixing, and sharing a photo he took of the nearly naked body of a dead woman. He's expected to be sentenced next week. Caitlin Gowerlock, CBC News, Winnipeg.
There has been another shooting in Minneapolis involving a U.S. federal agent. This time, the officer shot someone in the leg. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security says the officer fired last night after being attacked with a shovel and a broom handle while trying to make an arrest. Brian O'Hara is the Minneapolis police chief. He says the protests against U.S. immigration enforcement are getting out of hand.
The crowd is engaging in unlawful acts. They have thrown fireworks at police officers, and at multiple times, gas has been deployed.
It has been 1 week since an ICE agent shot and killed a 37-year-old protester named Renee Good. You can hear more on this story as well as other national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. An advocate for low-income Winnipeggers says the province's plan to freeze prices on 1-liter cartons does little to help families. The government hopes the freeze will keep milk more affordable. Kate Kaler is with the Social Planning Council of Winnipeg.
Of course, we're only talking about 1 liter of milk, and that's not the least expensive way to buy milk. If you're buying for a family, for example, you go for the 4-liter jug. So it would be very beneficial if they could actually look at that as well.
The province says it is looking at expanding its authority to control prices of bigger jugs of milk. Kaler says the best way the government could help low-income families is to increase financial supports. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, thanks very much, Heather.
Thank you.
Heather Wells in our news department. It's regional forecast time now, people. Thursday, middle of the month. Abby, what's up?
Yeah, we're just looking at conditions in that northwestern part of the province this morning around Brochet, where we have that yellow warning advisory in effect. We will be seeing blowing snow that will create near whiteout conditions. Temperatures in that area at this time, we're looking at temperatures around -6, -7, and even close to, it depends on where you are, also expecting about 2 to 4 centimeters of snow on the ground that will be whipping around. So some whiteout conditions will be coming your way for sure from now into Friday, making difficult travel conditions in that part of the province. While across board, we're going to be seeing more like a shift to cloudier skies and falling temperatures as those snowy conditions will move through both the north and the southern part of the province today. Winnipeg and the Red River Valley region, we're seeing temperatures around -8 at this time, partly cloudy outside. It's going to hover around -9 and -2 through the morning. So we should see highs around 1 degree later today with a good chance of flurries by the afternoon period. Breezy conditions from the south, and then tonight we'll see light snow coming in, and of course those snow we get on the ground will be blowing around into tomorrow morning. Temperatures drop to about -12 overnight. For the Pembina Valley region, we're tracking -1 at this time, partly cloudy, heading to a high of 2 degrees. Brandon is sitting at -3, mostly cloudy there. You reach a high of 0 today. A slim chance of flurries in the forecast. Some gusty winds coming your way sometime in the afternoon. In the Parkland region around Dauphin, we're seeing clear conditions. -1 at this time. Gimli's at -8, heading to a high of 1. The Power Flame, we're seeing temperatures between 3 degrees and -16, depending on where you are up north. And of course, I will see highs near 4 degrees. For Thompson, -11, warming up to -2, and Churchill, -16 at this time. With light snow, you warm up to -13 later. But right now, Winnipeg, it is -8.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Lots of info there. Let's get into what's happening in traffic.
Just got a call from Chris on the commuter line. He says, southbound Archibald, just past Nairn, you lose your right lane, so it's closed. So you just got to keep left to get around that. He says that bottleneck obviously is closing some pretty big backups for folks. So slow going on southbound Archibald this morning, just past Nairn. As well, just a reminder for folks that the city, as of 7 a.m., started plowing the back lanes today, so which I'm sure is good news for anyone who has a back lane, but just heads up if you got your garbage can or something protruding a little bit, might want to pull it back. If you do see something, though, else going on, if you're walking, you're biking, you're driving, you want to give me a call, let me know what you're seeing out there. That number you can call, 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
21 minutes to 8 o'clock now, and let's hear more of one of the top stories in the news today about those 3 kids who've been discharged from the Health Sciences Center after they were injured in that bus crash near Swan River. The driver of the bus, as you know, lost control, rolled into a ditch, after trying to pass another vehicle in icy conditions, RCMP have reported. Now, CBC's Justin Fiacconi was the one who spoke to 2 of the 3 kids who were hospitalized about the incident. So let's hear more from 16-year-old Drayden Janai and 15-year-old Michelle Chartrand.
Overall, in general, right now, how are you guys feeling?
I'm feeling better, just very sore.
I'm feeling okay, but my back is just really sore and that.
And I understand you were just discharged from the hospital, correct?
Yeah, I was just discharged.
It must have been very scary, I'd imagine. Can you walk me through a little bit about what you were thinking or just about what it was like, really?
I was like scared, like mostly for my sister. I was too in shock that I didn't feel any pain or anything.
I didn't really know what was going on. The bus was just rolling, and I think I maybe lost consciousness because I don't remember much besides ending up outside the bus.
So that was 16-year-old Drayden Janai and 15-year-old Michelle Chartrand speaking to CBC's Justin Fiacconi. They were injured in yesterday's bus crash near Swan River. Now, they had to be flown to Winnipeg, or I shouldn't say yesterday, the crash earlier this week. They did have to be flown to Winnipeg, and on the flight with them for that journey was Tracy Campo. She is actually related to all three of the kids who were sent to hospital. She's a grandmother of two of them, as you heard in the news. She's also an aunt of the other. This is how Tracy spoke about what happened with CBC's Justin Fiacconi.
How are you doing personally?
Tired. I'm so tired and exhausted. I've been with them since they came to Winnipeg yesterday. So they just got discharged today, Drea and Michelle, and Drayden got discharged late last night. So now we're gonna try and rest tonight. So yeah. So.
Can you walk me through a little bit about what the past 24 hours has been like for you?
It's scary, especially when you don't know their conditions until the doctors tell you how they're doing in that, especially when it comes to their spine and that. So, but doctor said that they'll have a full recovery because they're young. Their spine will heal as they're growing. So. And Drea was the worst one. She had big laceration on her forehead. Plus, she's wearing she has two small fractures on her pelvis, one in the front and one in the back. So right now they put a brace on her so she could be walking, so with less pain. So yeah.
And where were you when you found out? Well, can you describe what that moment was like?
I was getting ready to leave for work, and my daughter came running into my house and told me that she was all panicky and told me that the kids got into a bus accident, and Drea was the worst one, and that's where I panicked a lot because I didn't know what was going on with Drea. But she told me that Drayden and Michelle were all right, and the most one I was thinking about was Drea, and I couldn't calm down or anything, and it happened all so fast, and it just took felt like a long time to get to the accident because I was only going about 60, 70 all the way. It was icy all the way to where they were. And then when I got there, one of the cops saw how upset I was, and he reassured me that he told me, let me be the first one to tell you that no one got hurt, everybody's okay, and he wanted me to pull over and to calm myself down because I was too upset.
What kind of was this whole experience like, and how happy are you to see them that they're going to make a full recovery?
I'm so grateful they're alive, because this is the third accident in my family I had to run to. I had my first accident I got a call from was regarding my two daughters, and the same thing, it was scary. Then the second accident was my oldest grandson. The same thing, it was scary, and then to go through 5 of them, it was more scarier. So it's hard. Like it's just never easy to go and get something like this kind of news. So, but once I knew they were okay, I felt a little bit better.
So frightening, right, for all of the caregivers and family members, and of course for the students on the bus. Tracy Campo speaking there to CBC Manitoba's Justin Fiacconi. She was in Winnipeg helping care for some of the kids from Sapataway Cree Nation who were injured in that bus crash that happened in the early hours of Tuesday morning near Swan River. If you want to read more about our ongoing coverage and what we know about the state of the injuries and also what our CMP have said about what's going on with looking at what happened here, please go to our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
This is your heart. This is your heart after discovering a new CBC podcast. These are your feet. These are your feet after finding a CBC music playlist. This is your brain. This is your brain after hearing your favorite CBC radio show. Fall in love at first listen with the CBC Listen app. Stream CBC audio anytime, anywhere, all for free. Download CBC Listen today.
There are stories you just can't stop thinking about. They take you somewhere, they introduce you to someone, they share something new with you. Liftoff. Those are the stories you want to share with your friends, and CBC's award-winning documentary team is bringing them to you every week on Storylines. Storylines, new this season on CBC Radio 1 and always on demand on the CBC Listen app.
7:46 a.m. on CBC. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thank you for joining us here on the show this morning on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. On the app or if you're watching on YouTube. Mild out there again. It's -8. In Winnipeg today, we're going to be around 1 degree. And then we dip back to more what January usually feels like here. We're going to have a high of -22 by Saturday. And then it'll stay cold for a while. Today, the big story is the wind. Winds will be northwest 30, gusting to 50. Well, staying with the story of the school bus crash, I just want to mention that coming up on the program after 8 o'clock, we're going to hear more about lap shoulder belts and how they could impact safety on school buses. We have a guest on that says compartmentalization, which is what a lot of the safety officials in Canada say is in place right now to help kids. Our guest is going to say it only works if the students stay in the seat during a collision. So John Barrington will join us. He is in the States, actually, but they're in a location of one of the largest crash test sites in the world. And he's going to be talking to us about safety belts, so stay tuned for that. Well, next on the show, this was the scene on Winnipeg's Main Street 1 year ago today.
We had heavy flame involvement on the 3rd floor upon arrival on the one end, and it was pressurized smoke, and eventually there was heavy fire on all of the 3rd floor and the main floor after we opened up the windows. Basically, all the levels had some fire involvement.
That was Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service Platoon Chief Steve Kumka on January 15th, 2025. That's when the historic Sutherland Hotel burnt down and 140 years of history became a pile of rubble. 4 days before the fire, the BC-based Anhart Community Housing Society had signed an agreement to buy it for $475,000. Their idea was to restore the building and create something for the community. A year later, that agreement is still on the table. The sale has not yet gone through, but I understand there's been some development overnight and maybe a deal is close. Keith Gordon is Executive Director of Anhart Community Housing Society and a former Winnipegger, and with us in studio because he's in the city today. Hi there.
Hi.
So how close is the deal on the Sutherland? Where are you at this morning?
Well, I wish I could say that it was imminent, but there are still obstacles because there are conditions that have to be met. And on those old buildings, sometimes it's difficult for those conditions to be taken care of. So we're still in the process.
Okay, so even though the building isn't there anymore, there's still something going on with ownership, property, and what's happening there.
Yeah, it mainly focuses on the remediation of the materials that are on the site that have to be dealt with before we can finalize the sale.
Got it. Now, of course, I will ask more about what you're interested in building and how you view housing in the city through your nonprofit. But I have to ask about the Manwin. I mean, what was your reaction when you heard yesterday up the way another historic hotel is, was lost?
Yeah, I was very sad to hear that. I think it's important that we distinguish between what happened and what's happening. So there are numerous, it's a great city, so much going on in the city that's good, but there is a problem that the city is losing connectedness. So yes, that is what happened yesterday with the Manwin, but what's happening is that there are parts of a great city that are losing connection with the other parts, and so I'm seeing that this is a trend. It's been going on for a while, and I think it can be reversed.
What do you mean by losing connectedness?
Well, I think if we view the city as a living organism, as a system, the city has different parts, and the city has different aspects. And anybody that drives around Winnipeg sees wonderful parts of the city, a great city, but then we also see other parts where the homes are derelict, commercial properties are derelict, and it seems to happen year after year, and without getting better, despite the fact that the city and other groups are identifying the problem. But so far we have to turn the tide.
Earlier this morning, we actually had our reporter Jim Agapito out in that part of the area asking about the impacts and what the area has been like, and someone actually identified it as the quote-unquote bad area. Is that the kind of labeling that you're worried about when you look at sort of Main Street in Winnipeg?
Not at all. I think just like when a person's body has a problem, it's signaling it needs help. So I think we have to completely avoid those labels and that thinking. I think we have to realize that there are factors at play in all cities, and Winnipeg can be understood historically that it had a part of the city in the North End where Ukrainian groups and Jewish groups, Polish groups left for other reasons, and it's physically divided on the other side of tracks, and so the city has to view itself as a whole in a very positive way and just respond to this part of the city.
You are here today to look at, and you have there's a really detailed press release you put out that has a whole bunch of different properties. Some of them are sort of vacant, some of them are derelict, where you say there's opportunities to build the same kind of nonprofit, social housing that you have in BC. What is your plan and hope for the Sutherland should you be able to get that deal done?
Yeah, well, there's absolutely a proven pathway that not only our organizations, but the great organizations of Winnipeg, working with government and business and patient capital, there's already so many things going on. So I think with the Sutherland property, we have to unite forces and close on that sale and remediate it. And our original goal was to retrofit the old building and use it as a transition out of homelessness. And I think that's still possible for other old hotels. But now that the property is vacant, we can use a model that we used in Vancouver, where we built 69 micro suites with a strong social employment focus. And we could it could be part of the housing continuum, so people aren't stuck in housing that isn't adequate for them. And so that would be the idea.
What would a micro suite cost?
Well, a project like that would be about $20 million. It would be CMHC money combined with patient capital from the private community. So it doesn't have to weigh heavily on provincial funding sources for operating. It can be self-sufficient, but that would be the typical cost of that development.
And for an individual to get into a micro suite, when we say that, what should they be envisioning? How big are the spaces that you've looked at? You have quite a number of diagrams of what they would look like here.
Well, small studios can be 400 square feet, 300 square feet. If the city of Winnipeg would allow it, it can go down to 260 square feet, which is possible in other cities in North America. And if you have mixed income, so you can, the building can be self-sufficient because it's affordable housing. It's 100% affordable housing. All the rental rates would be below the market.
We are hearing in the news this morning that the head of Main Street Project, which was next door to the Manwin, is next door to where the Manwin was, says, that they actually were worried about a fire risk in that vacant building for quite some time. They're saying they would welcome a partnership to redevelop that site with housing. Are you interested in the Manwin property?
Yes, in fact, we're working at analyzing all the derelict residential properties and commercial properties, as well as the encampments in Winnipeg, and having an overall plan where over the years that we can turn the tide and have the opposite feeling, where we have a complete stock of what we need to do, and we're uniting forces. So we would be very happy to work with the Main Street Project on that, Manwin.
What motivates you to do this work in Winnipeg?
Well, I'm from Winnipeg, but we have been over the last 25 years perfecting this model whereby we believe that cities are smart, and we believe that nonprofits can do more, and the business community can step up. And so we started working nationally about 5 years ago, and I have still many connections in Winnipeg, so it seemed quite easy and natural to come here.
What are your plans for today, Mr. Gordon? I know that you have you have a plan to sort of to talk about some of your hopes for the city in a bigger way.
Yeah, we've called for a gathering at the Sutherland site at 1 o'clock. The Winnipeg Fire Department were called out at 1:25 1 year ago. And it's not for a moment of silence, because I think we need to speak out. So we've invited all interested groups from the business sector, from community groups, and government to come, and we will observe, and we will say, no, we will work together, and we won't let another year go by with that building and others that are not in the process of development for Winnipeggers who desperately need that type of housing.
And what response are you getting from the city, just as a last question, like from the mayor and such, in your interest in, as you said, a lot of Winnipeg?
We're getting a great response. In fact, I met with the mayor yesterday, and we went over the plans we established over a year ago when we started these efforts. I think the city is very committed to reversing this trend and providing housing. But the reality is, governments are just one part of the city. So the city is doing what it can to enumerate these properties, residential and commercial, and changing bylaws where we can move more quickly on derelict properties. And so I think their response is great.
Do you have, just as a last brief question, if they were to remediate the Sutherland and the Inkwood Dry on the deal, which you said is close, how quickly do you think that you could build there, these micro suites you're talking about?
Well, I mean, we would have to start with the typical engagement with the city, with the architectural drawings, but we have all of those plans. We've already built that type of building before, a 6-story building, and so we would get started immediately this year.
Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.
That is Keith Gordon in Winnipeg, former Winnipegger, but in town again. He's executive director of the Anhart Community Housing Society out of BC. So they're a nonprofit real estate developer. Now, CBC did spoke to Brad Gross last night. They represent the sellers of the Sutherland. He did tell CBC he's expecting the deal to be closed very soon as well. We reached out to the city of Winnipeg for comment as well on the situation. They did not respond by deadline. So a developing story here on development. It is coming up to 8 o'clock. After 8, we're going to hear how lap shoulder belts could impact safety on school buses, that ongoing conversation after what happened in Swan River. Here now is Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, one of the teams involved in that school bus near Swan River on Tuesday remembers waking up bloody and dazed. Drea Mateway-Washing was one of 15 people on the bus that rolled after veering off the icy highway. The 17-year-old had been taking a quick nap when she opened her eyes to see the bus swerving and ended up on the other side of the bus. We're going to hear from her. And despite the chaos caused by yesterday's fire at the vacant Manwin, staff at Main Street Project are thankful it's gone. Jamil Mahmood at the Main Street Project says the Manwin was a horrible place for the community with murders and harm caused to the neighborhood. We'll hear more in our next local news at 8:30.
All right, thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Traffic pretty good so far. Cruiser out plowing back lanes. Watch for them. 788-3093 if you need us. -8 right now in Winnipeg.
On cue.
I'm Talia Schlenger in for Tom Power. The renowned artist Stan Douglas is known for recreating big moments of tension in history in his art and then remixing them. He'll tell you how stepping inside history has helped him realize there's an alternative to the status quo.
Until I get to a point where I can make a decision intuitively without thinking about it consciously.
Q. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
80 Canadians have been just named to the Order of Canada, and those on the list represent a huge variety of fields. Today we'll hear from country music star Terry Clark and champion of the trades, Mandy Ranahan. That's coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. Prime Minister Mark Carney's trip to Beijing is all about improving the relationship between Canada and China. Several MOUs have already been signed highlighting the areas those two countries can work together, including an MOU on energy. Natural Resources Minister Tim Hodgson says China is hungry for more oil and gas.
They are very clear they would like more Canadian energy products, yes.
But as China signals it would like to invest more in energy projects, Industry Minister Melanie Joly is assuring Canadians the government is still thinking about national security.
It's important to remember that the Investment Canada Act was recently modified to increase powers of the government to make sure that we would have the guardrails important when it comes to national security and economic security.
In 2012, the Harper government put strict restrictions on oil sands investment, fearing foreign government interference. To Minneapolis now, and another shooting involving an ICE agent. It happened last night, exactly 1 week since an ICE agent shot and killed Renee Good. The Department of Homeland Security says federal officers were chasing a suspect believed to be in the U.S. illegally. Katie Nicholson has the latest.
Chaos in a North Minneapolis neighborhood. Flashbangs and waves of tear gas after an ICE agent shot a Venezuelan man in the leg, igniting the anger of nearly 200 protesters.
So you said one of the protesters jumped in the vehicle of an ICE agent?
Yeah, and punched him in the face and then jumped back out of the vehicle.
On X, the Department of Homeland Security said an ICE agent was assaulted by a Venezuelan they were trying to apprehend, and two other people attacked the agent with a snow shovel and a broom handle. DHS says the officer feared for his life and fired the gun. Both the officer and the man who was shot were sent to hospital. The two others were taken into custody.
This is not sustainable.
The city and the state have filed a lawsuit to curtail the federal immigration crackdown. But Mayor Jacob Fry worries it may take too long.
I'm deeply concerned that we don't have that kind of time. This is already the second shooting that we've had in a week. People are scared. The atmosphere is tense.
This latest shooting, 1 week to the day that Renee Good was shot and killed by an ICE agent. And on the same night, Governor Tim Walz addressed the state.
It's a campaign of organized brutality against the people of Minnesota by our own federal government.
Walz encouraged people to protest loudly, urgently, but peacefully, something some chose to ignore. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Washington.
Iran says Erfan Sotani will not be sentenced to death. He's the 26-year-old man who was arrested last week during anti-regime demonstrations, and there were reports he was going to be executed yesterday. Iran's judiciary now says Soltani was charged with anti-regime propaganda and colluding against internal security, but the death penalty does not apply to his case. A promise not to execute protesters seems to have eased tensions with U.S. President Donald Trump.
We've been told that the killing in Iran is stopping, and it's stopped, and it's stopping. And there's no plan for executions or an execution or executions. So I've been told that on good authority. We'll find out about it.
The group Human Rights Activists in Iran says more than 18,000 people have been arrested in this round of protesting, and more than 2,600 have been killed, including one Canadian citizen. Nobel Peace Prize winner Maria Corina Machado is meeting Donald Trump for the first time. The U.S. president is hosting the Venezuelan opposition leader at the White House just days after he ousted her foe, President Nicolas Maduro. The CBC's Willie Lowry is in our Washington bureau. Willie, what are we expecting from this meeting?
John, in many ways, both Maria Corina Machado and Donald Trump have achieved what the other has strived for. Machado with the much-coveted Nobel Peace Prize, and Trump deposing longtime Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. But there is no question that President Trump holds the keys to both Machado and Venezuela's future. The Venezuelan opposition leader will try to court Trump and show him that she is capable of running the oil-rich country, something Trump has questioned. So far, he has also resisted calls for elections and the democratic process to take place in Venezuela, opting to allow Maduro's vice president, Delcy Rodriguez, to take power.
Meanwhile, Willie, we'll get you to unpack this one. Republicans in the Senate have blocked efforts aimed at limiting Trump's ability to conduct more attacks on Venezuela. What can you tell us about that?
So the White House went on a week-long offensive trying to pressure 5 Senate Republicans to reverse their votes on a resolution that would have forced Trump to seek congressional approval before any more military action in Venezuela. The pressure tactics worked, with 2 senators saying the administration had satisfied their concerns. Here's Republican Senator Josh Hawley.
The Secretary also told me directly that the administration will not put ground troops into Venezuela. They do not seek to occupy Venezuela.
Meanwhile, Democratic Senator Tim Kaine slammed his Republican colleagues.
This is very disappointing, and it's disappointing that my colleagues let the president sort of beat him into submission.
Democratic lawmakers have been really frustrated by the administration's unilateral actions in Venezuela without their approval or advance knowledge.
Willie Lowry in Washington. Thanks, Willie.
My pleasure.
People in Uganda are voting in a presidential election, and there are reports of long lines and lengthy delays at polling stations.
I came here around 7:30 because they told us by 7 the election will be starting. But we are here still standing, waiting for the machines. They're telling us machines are not yet here. So we are just waiting, and we are hoping we vote in time.
81-year-old Yoweri Museveni is seeking his 7th term. He's been in power since 1986. His main challenger, a musician turned politician best known as Bobby Wine, is vowing to root out corruption and bring in reforms. There is heavy security leading up to today's vote, and security forces have been accused of using violence to repress opposition parties during the campaign. Here in this country, the Ontario school boards hold thousands of pieces of publicly owned art. They range from paintings worth millions to prints worth pennies, and most of them donated decades ago and rarely seen. But when CBC News asked one board for details about its collection, officials used a rare safety exemption reserved for serious threats. Colin Butler has more.
So this idea of secrecy is only a short-term solution.
Christopher Marinello has a warning for institutions that choose secrecy. He's a UK-based lawyer who specializes in recovering stolen art.
So everything that comes into an institution must be cataloged, or there's no hope for recovery.
CBC News has been examining how Ontario school boards manage publicly owned art. At the Thames Valley District School Board in London, Ontario, officials withheld key details about their collections, saying disclosure could pose a risk to staff health and safety. It's one of the strongest secrecy provisions in Ontario's information access laws, reserved for serious risks. The collection itself, 84 pieces worth $34,000 or $360 apiece. It's modest and typical, says University of Toronto Museum Studies professor Kara Krumpetich.
It looks like a pretty standard list of artworks that we see in sort of small and mid-size municipal collections.
CBC News also asked the province what it knows about the millions of dollars in art held by school boards currently under financial supervision. The answer didn't say whether those collections are tracked. A spokesperson said the government's priority is ensuring resources are directed back into classrooms. For now, the art remains publicly owned and largely unseen, with key details withheld under a safety exemption. Colin Butler, CBC News, London, Ontario.
And finally, the Canadian Real Estate Association says home sales across the country declined by nearly 2% in December compared to the same period a year earlier. Jenna Benchitrit reports.
Even as interest rates came down, boosting activity and prices in parts of Quebec, the Atlantic provinces, and the prairies, prospective homebuyers in Toronto and Vancouver stayed on the sidelines, spooked by economic uncertainty and fears drummed up by the U.S. trade war. Each city saw home sales hit near 20-year lows, with prices dropping too. Toronto realtor John Pasalis isn't expecting much of a pickup in 2026.
Because there is still so much uncertainty.
It's not just major markets. Prices are declining in parts of southern Ontario and BC. That's according to Robert Hogue, assistant chief economist at RBC.
Because those price gains were more significant in those areas, the correction is also a bit more significant.
But not every housing market is struggling. Some are on fire. Quebec City saw December home prices swell by 17% last year as buyers flocked to more affordable pastures. Jenna Benchitrit, CBC News, Toronto.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live in downtown Winnipeg. Out our studio window, we've got some cloud cover this morning, but later today we are expecting it to be mainly sunny and windy. This half hour on the program, we continue to look at a number of different angles and things that we can learn from the school bus rollover near Swan River that happened days ago, injuring some of the students. Now, it has renewed calls from some to install seat belts in school buses. Others say they don't work. We're going to talk about lap shoulder belts. We're going to talk about different types of seat belts this half hour on the program. We're actually going to take you to Indianapolis. They are the location of one of the largest crash test sites in the world. So stay tuned. We're going to hear about that. In addition, this half hour on the show, we have a special edition of our medical call. And if you're popping an aspirin today because of prevention for challenges with your heart, you may want to hear what Dr. Bardwash has to say about that. Stay tuned. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells, who's in our news center. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a housing advocate says it was just a matter of time before fire destroyed the vacant Manwin Hotel on Main Street. Marion Willis at St. Boniface Street Link says almost every shuttered building in Winnipeg ends up razed by fire. An advocate for low-income Winnipeggers says the province's plan to freeze milk prices on 1-liter cartons doesn't go far enough. Kate Kaler at the Social Planning Council of Winnipeg says the price freeze should also be applied to 2 and 4-liter jugs of milk, but she says the most effective way government could help low-income families is to increase financial supports. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 8:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Let's get into what's going on weather-wise. I'm watching Toronto, Abby, and they've got all the snow, and they're worried about it. Of course, in Winnipeg, that will be received differently, but there's not a drop of snow on the main street outside our window here because so much melted off.
Yeah, so much melted off, but we should be getting some later in the evening today. And talking about this part of the province, we're still seeing light snow fall in the Brochet area of the province this morning. So the northwest corner of the province, we are still getting light snow, and this is the reason we have that yellow advisory in effect, because the snow will definitely be whipping around due to the high wind you'll be getting there, and this will be creating difficult travels. We're talking about near whiteout conditions for that part of the province, and the snow is going to be on and off for most of the day into tomorrow morning, so brace for that if you are out and about around Brochet. But across the province, we're going to see a mix of sun and clouds this morning before the snow and those gusty winds will be moving into the south later in the day. Heavy flurries also will continue in the northern part of the province. Winnipeg right now, we are at -8. Temperatures will stay around -8 and -2 for most of the morning before we see a high of 1 degree later today. As mentioned earlier, expect a good chance of flurries this afternoon and some windy conditions.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Well, you might have just heard in the background, Corey got off the phone with someone. What's up in traffic?
Yeah, Shelley just called. She's on Highway 8 heading south towards the city. She's from Camp Morden. She says there's some freezing rain starting around there right now. Also some black ice as well on the highway. Highway 8 around Gimli, Petersfield. So just be careful if you are driving on Highway 8. That might be the case for other highways as well this morning. Thanks for that call, Shelley. Otherwise, southbound Archibald, heard earlier just after Nairn from Chris that you lose your right lane, so keep left to get around that. Some slow going on southbound Archibald this morning. Other than that, though, if you are out there, you do see something else going on, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number to call, 204-788-3093.
Well, let's talk about the school bus that rolled near Swan River on Tuesday, injuring some of the students who we're hearing from in the news today. It has renewed calls from some, as I mentioned, to install seatbelts on buses and school buses, but not everyone agrees it's needed. Lewis Smith is with the Canadian Safety Council. We spoke with him last month, actually, after a PC private member bill mandating seatbelts on school buses came forward. Here's what he said.
Canada Safety Council's position on this is fairly simple. We believe that school buses are already very effective at keeping their passengers safe, and seatbelts on school buses may have, in a theoretical world, practical use in specific collision instances, but those collision instances are so rare, and the operational context adds extra risk factors that we don't believe make it worth it.
School bus seats are designed to keep kids safe in an impact already, something called compartmentalization. That's a word we've been hearing a lot the last few days, but our next guest says the compartmentalization only works if the students stay in the seat during a collision. John Barrington is our next guest, Executive Director of School Bus Sales at IME Safeguard in Indianapolis. Now, they design and sell school bus seats and seatbelts. They are also the location of one of the largest crash test sites in the world, and he's been listening in and with us now. Good morning.
Good morning.
So what's your reaction just to that idea about compartmentalization and when it works, and that it only works, it works in most cases, and it would be very specific where it wouldn't actually protect a kid?
Well, I completely agree that school buses are very safe. Their safety record is second to none. But compartmentalization is a concept that was implemented 50 years ago, and there are improvements. It was, at the time it was implemented, it was considered to be incomplete because there were not belt systems at the time that were capable of performing the way that they do today. And so the addition of lap shoulder belt seats is an incremental improvement in safety because it completes compartmentalization and it keeps students inside the compartment in crash situations.
So tell me a little bit about the design of what you're calling lap shoulder belts today and how they work in tandem, I guess, with compartmentalization as well.
Yeah, so it's pretty simple. If it's 3-point lap shoulder belt seats are in everyone's automobile. Pretty much they operate the same way. It's you have a 2-point lap and then the shoulder retractor, which goes over the shoulder of the passenger, and as such, it secures you at 3 locations versus the 2-point laps, which only secured you in 2. And so it, like I say, it keeps you inside the compartment of the school bus.
You've tested, obviously, school bus safety. What does your testing say about the value of adding a seatbelt to a bus? And what have you found?
Yeah, anybody can go out on our YouTube site and see videos of tests we've run, but our Center for Advanced Product Evaluation, CAPE, which is our test facility, is able to recreate crash situations in a number of scenarios. And when you do rollover crashes specifically, or test for side impact, where students can be ejected or thrown out of their seat, belts have significant efficacy there and keep students in the seating compartment.
Can a lap and shoulder belt accommodate a wide range of body sizes? Because kids obviously are transported in school buses from K to 12. You got a whole bunch of sizes of kids.
Yeah, sure. And the seats themselves are limited in size to, I think, 39 or 45 inches in width, but the belts accommodate various sizes of children, and they have height adjusters on the belt so that the belt can be adjusted down to the height of the child's shoulder, so to even improve comfort.
Is that, do you still install lap belts anywhere, or is that completely gone by way of shoulder belts being safer?
No, there are lap belts that are used in the U.S. But they are becoming less and less prevalent, and the lap shoulder belt seat has really become the standard in the industry, and it continues to move that way.
I understand for smaller children, maybe for younger children, there's a benefit to a shoulder belt being there.
Yes, in some of the studies that were conducted over the years with lap belts, the skeletal structure of a child is incomplete and not fully developed, and so lap belts, as you can imagine, if you can imagine a frontal crash where the child is kind of bent over, that it can injure a child, and that's where I think some of the testing in the past showed that lap belts were not a better solution than lap shoulder belts.
In situations where a student would need to evacuate quickly, get out of the bus, the Canadian Safety Council says that a seatbelt could add precious seconds to a school bus evacuation because, of course, they have to undo it. What do you understand about that?
Well, I mean, it's one of the things that gets thrown out. I think realistically, there has not been a lot of evaluation of that. There has been some in Iowa. There was some evaluation of speed. Look, seatbelts are designed to release and to unbuckle easily, even under pressure, even under load. I think it ends up being a situation where you ask, look, if a bus is in an accident where children are thrown or passengers are thrown, and they're unconscious or injured, that in and of itself prevents a timely evacuation. So I think that seatbelts do not provide any greater risk to evacuation than the general accident that could occur.
Thank you, John Barrington, for being with us this morning and weighing in on what happened here in Manitoba from your perspective on what you understand about belt safety. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Marcy. Glad to be with you.
John Barrington is the Executive Director of Sales at IME Safeguard in Indianapolis, Indiana. Now, they design and sell school bus seats and seat belts. We reached back to the Canadian Safety Council. In an email, they said to us they were watching the investigation of what happened in Swan River on Tuesday with the bus crash. They said, quote, "We'd be glad to provide perspective on general school bus safety design and the considerations that go into seatbelt policy once more facts are established." And so we don't yet have a lot more facts. We do know RCMP have said that conditions were icy, and they have said also that the bus driver was attempting to pass at the time when the bus rolled into the ditch. This morning, we are hearing from students that were on that bus who've now been released from hospital, those students we talked to, and we're hearing about some of their injuries and what it was like for them. That is coming up in your next news at 8:30.
Whether you're hanging out or out on the move, stay in the know with CBC Listen. The cost of living with Paul Havershrud goes beyond facts and figures.
Real estate is the 800-pound gorilla of Canada's economy.
And What on Earth with Laura Lynch explores the climate change crisis, problems and solutions.
What happened that made you start to think and see climate change differently?
The Cost of Living and What on Earth. Available now on CBC Listen.
-8 in Winnipeg. It is mostly cloudy out our CBC windows here. And right now, the morning drive is going pretty good in the city of Winnipeg. Corey mentioned a couple problems, though. Southbound Archibald is slow near Nairn, and Highway 8 outside the city around Gimli and Petersfield. Freezing rain and black ice is reported. Well, for decades, countless people have reached for a little bottle of aspirin every day. Maybe you're having one this morning with your breakfast, thinking it's a simple step to help prevent heart attack and stroke. But these days, the advice from doctors is more nuanced. Aspirin is in the spotlight again because U.S. President Donald Trump recently said he uses aspirin every day for the past 25 years. He told the Wall Street Journal he wants, quote, nice, thin blood, end quote. For more on the pros and cons of taking aspirin daily, that's our medical column with Dr. Raj Bhardwaj. Hi.
Good morning, Marcy.
So why don't we take a step back? What is aspirin? Where does it come from?
It's actually really fascinating. Aspirin is very old. So it was first created in a lab in 1897, sold by the company Bayer in 1899 as a pain reliever. But the origin story actually goes back thousands of years. Almost all ancient cultures recognize that the bark of the willow tree, or something similar to it in different places, had something in it that helped with pain and fever if people chewed on the bark or made tea from it. So in the 1800s, chemists found that the active ingredient in those natural remedies was a chemical. They called it salicin or salicin. The problem with it was that it tasted really bitter and it could upset your stomach. So the chemists at Bayer changed the chemical a bit in the lab. They created acetyl salicylic acid, or ASA, and they sold it under the brand name aspirin. And it has been used, it's probably one of the most widely used medications in the world, actually.
What exactly does it do then to help treat heart attacks?
Okay, so blood has three main types of cells floating around in it. There's red blood cells, they deliver the oxygen. There's white blood cells, part of your immune system. And there's platelets. Platelets help to stop bleeding. So when you get a cut, these little platelets, they stick to the damaged area. They create a little clot so that blood can't keep pouring out of damaged blood vessels. But here's the problem. Platelets sometimes form clots when and where you don't want them to. So if you have some cholesterol buildup inside your blood vessels, that can crack or rupture. And even though you're not bleeding, your platelets see that as an injury and they quickly clump together and they form a clot inside your artery. Now, if that clot blocks the blood flow to your heart, you get a heart attack. If it blocks the blood flow to your brain, you get a stroke. So aspirin works by stopping the platelets' abilities to stick together. And aspirin is really good at doing that. So the effects of aspirin last for the entire lifespan of a platelet. So you can basically turn that platelet off. So that's for about 10 days. So even though the aspirin is out of your bloodstream within a few hours of taking it, the effect on your platelet lasts for quite a while. But if you make a platelet less sticky, that also makes it harder to stop bleeding if you cut yourself, or if you have an ulcer, or if you fall and hit your head.
Can you get more into the prevention part?
Yeah, so I mean, the idea is that if aspirin can turn off the clumping of platelets when they are forming a blood clot, and by doing that sort of prevent your heart attack from getting bigger, or at least minimize the heart attack, then the idea is, well, why not give aspirin to people before they even have a heart attack? So that then if a bit of that cholesterol in your bloodstream cracks or breaks, the platelets don't freak out so much. They don't clump so much. Maybe that'll prevent heart attacks in the first place. And that's actually what we started doing in the 1970s and 80s, all the way until about 2018, when there were 3 very large scientific papers published that looked at the evidence for that. Tens of thousands of people over years and years, and they said, look, this is kind of a wash. So if we give aspirin to a whole bunch of people every day for like 5 years, we might prevent a few heart attacks, sure, but we probably will cause the same number of major bleeding episodes as well in some people. So now we have to think really, really hard about the details. How old are you? What are your risk factors for bleeding? What are your particular risk factors for for having a blood clot? Then we can decide if taking aspirin for prevention is a good idea for you or not.
What do the Canadian guidelines say about taking aspirin for prevention?
Yeah, so the guidelines have changed recently, and they basically say, look, if you've already had a heart attack, then we know that you're at way higher risk of having another one. Then the benefit of preventing a second heart attack with a daily aspirin usually outweighs the risk of having a first bleeding episode. But if you've never had a heart attack, then chances are that the aspirin is probably giving you a greater risk of bleeding than benefit from preventing your first heart attack. This is one of those things where it's very nuanced, and it's really worth a conversation with your doctor about what sorts of preventative measures are going to give you the biggest impact in terms of lowering your risk for having a heart attack or another heart attack as you get older. But if you have been told to take aspirin by a doctor, I wouldn't stop taking it without talking to them again. And if you're young and you've never had heart disease and you started taking aspirin just in case, then I would definitely book a visit to talk about your personal risks and benefits, because it might be giving you more risk than benefit.
Some people say that they take a daily aspirin to prevent cancer. Is that a thing?
Yeah, so that's a thing that is, again, complicated. There were some studies that said, oh, yeah, maybe this is a good idea. The recent studies have said that, look, daily low-dose aspirin, yes, it can lead to lower rates of colorectal cancer, but the benefit doesn't become apparent until you take aspirin for 5 to 10 years. And even then, the benefit doesn't really show up until about 20 years after you started taking aspirin. So we're talking about a very long-term commitment, and the current guidelines are not strongly in favor of taking aspirin for cancer prevention.
All right, Dr. Bardwash, thank you.
My pleasure.
That is our medical column, and that's our host, Dr. Raj Bardwash. Well, we're counting up to 8:30 in our last news time of our program, and Corey has popped in to talk about the show he's hosting today, which is Radio Noon. What's your call-in?
Yes, well, I don't know if you saw that video earlier this week of those the hockey game of 8-year-olds in Pennsylvania where a brawl broke out.
Yeah, they were fighting, and the crowd was cheering them on as
Yeah,
they were hammering each other.
exactly. So that went viral. Obviously, it was on the news, internet, everywhere. So we're going to take some time to stop and have a conversation about hockey fighting. Do you think it's obviously, many people say, oh, of course, it is inappropriate for that age, but is it appropriate in general? Let's talk about it. And what is it about hockey fighting culture that you think maybe led to this or influenced it? So we're going to talk about what people think about that. We're going to have an author on who's thought a lot about it, and we want to hear from you. You can call us after 12:30.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Interesting as well, because at the age where kids start hitting in hockey, which could lead to a fight or not, but the kids are drastically different sizes, and I always wonder, how that goes down too
And
at
the
our
question
local
is,
rinks.
Yeah, would hockey be better with or without fighting?
Fighting, yeah. And can you teach good values if it is part of the game, and where's the line? All those things. Always a good topic. Radio Noon heard across the province. You can weigh in between 12:30 and 1 o'clock. Right now, it's time for your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. Well, Thursday begins with sunshine, and it's mild, -8 right now. We will be melting again, a high today of 1, and then a good chance of light snow developing later this evening. Fire that destroyed the vacant Manwin Hotel has renewed concerns about how long unsafe buildings are allowed to sit in Winnipeg neighborhoods. Cheryl Martins is a longtime neighborhood activist in the Spence area. She says the city often waits too long to intervene, even after repeated fires.
Because usually buildings have 2 or 3 fires. If nothing happens and the owner doesn't take responsibility and claim it on insurance or doesn't have insurance, the city should take it. Just take it, because it's going to just lead to 2 more fires, and then the building will be gone anyway.
City Council has recently approved changes meant to speed up the process of seizing derelict properties. That includes shorter timelines before properties can be taken over and expanded use of the city's power to take title without compensation. The head of the Main Street project is happy the Manwin Hotel on Main Street is gone. Executive Director Jamil Mahmood says shelter staff were worried about the fire risk in that vacant building next door. He says on Tuesday, the back door had been ripped off and someone tried to set a dumpster fire.
We were very concerned about it. That's why we had kind of fire watch on the building and had been working with the city closely to make sure it was boarded up properly. I think we probably reported about 10 or 15 times since last year where the boarding had come off or there'd been activity in the building or stuff like that. So we've been pretty on top of it.
Mahmoud says his agency wanted to buy the Manwin, but the owner was asking too much. He now says they would welcome a partnership to redevelop that site with housing. One of the teens involved in a school bus crash on Tuesday remembers waking up dazed and bloody. Drea Meitwayashing was one of 15 people on the bus that rolled after veering off the icy highway north of Swan River. The 17-year-old from Sapataway at Cree Nation had been taking a quick nap when she opened her eyes to see the bus swerving. She ended up on the other side of the bus with a big gash on her forehead.
I was out of it. I thought I was dreaming until I felt my body hit the ground so hard. I don't really remember anything besides getting off the bus and going to another bus.
Meitwayashing was airlifted to Health Sciences Centre in Winnipeg, along with her 16-year-old brother Drayden Janai and 15-year-old cousin Michelle Chartrand. All 3 have now been released from hospital. Tracy Campo is Drea and Drayden's grandmother. She also cares for her niece and had another grandchild who was on the bus. She says she has had a stressful couple of days since she frantically rushed to the scene. She's grateful her loved ones are expected to make a full recovery physically, but worries it might take a while for the crash's emotional toll to wear off.
They enjoy getting up every day to get on that bus, but right now they're traumatized and they don't know if they want to get on that bus again.
In a statement yesterday, Shared Health says only one person remains in hospital in Swan River. New rules for nursing agencies take effect today in Manitoba. The province previously announced ending its relationship with dozens of agencies. It will now work with just 4, chosen through a bidding process. Health regions have to use these 4 to fill nursing vacancies. Manitoba Nurses Union President Darlene Jackson supports the changes, but worries the province isn't prepared for the transition from a system that has relied heavily on agency nurses.
Clearly, our support also includes, been ready for the change when it happens and not leaving nurses in the lurch, wondering who's going to work with me tomorrow.
The health minister's office says a provincial travel nurse team, float of pool nurses, is on standby. And the agency nurses they've chosen, the health minister's office says, will help deal with any staffing issues during the transition. An advocate for low-income Winnipeggers says the province's plan to freeze prices on 1-liter cartons of milk does little to help families. The government hopes the freeze will keep milk more affordable. Kate Kaler is with the Social Planning Council of Winnipeg.
Of course, we're only talking about 1 liter of milk, and that's not the least expensive way to buy milk. If you're buying for a family, for example, you go for the 4-liter jug. So it would be very beneficial if they could actually look at that as well.
The province says it is looking at expanding authority to control prices of bigger jugs of milk. Kaler says the best way the government could help low-income families is to increase financial supports. And it might impact you here, but in Toronto, it is a full-blown snow days for millions of people, not just in Toronto, but in southern Ontario. The Greater Toronto Area is on its way to getting up to 30 centimeters of snow today, while Ottawa and eastern Ontario could see 25. Many Toronto area schools, universities, and colleges are closed today, and commuters are facing long delays as snow and heavy winds sweep across that region. And Toronto's Pearson International Airport says arrivals and departures are being affected. And if you are flying anywhere that passes through Toronto, you're advised to check your flight status before heading to the airport. You can find more Manitoba news, as always, at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
So like 30 centimeters like a Wednesday and like a regular Wednesday.
I don't know that we've seen 30 yet this year.
I know. It's a classic Winnipeg joke, but if you actually look at the images, yeah, they're getting some serious stuff.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for the update on the airport. Big thanks to Sophia Peralta-Barone, Jim Agapito, Sierra Sanders, Shanley Vidal, Heather Wells, Megan Ketchison, and Aaron Broman, as well as Nellie Gonzalez and Leif Larson for their work on the program today. Corey, last word in the road?
Southbound Archibald just past Nairn, you lose your right lane, so keep left to get around that. Also, slippery conditions on Highway 8, some black ice there that you might run into.
Abby.
Whiteout conditions in the northwest corner of the province into tomorrow morning, while down south we're going to see mild condition transition to some flurries coming in later, and windy conditions. We're seeing temperatures between 0 and -8 right now down south, and we should warm up to 2 degrees and 4 degrees later in the day.
All right, on behalf of our Studio 15 live crew, Corey Funk, Abby Adiemi, and Darren Marash, I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for listening to CBC. The Current coming up next. Talk to you tomorrow.